Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Scion Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had Highschool DxD Harem. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Narrator's POV. In the world where humans are known to get powers known as quirks at the age of 4, these powers can range from massive destruction to just an increase of finger length. This was not the case 200 years ago. But everything started when a baby was born and was emitting golden light. This marked the start of an era. Technological development was halted. More people slowly started getting powers. In just a span of 200 years. 90% of the population had quirks. The remaining 10% of them never got any powers or the powers faded away with age. You probably might think, even 10% is like more than 500 million people. But no. Even in this 10%, 9.34% are older people whose quirks have faded with age. In this day and age, having no powers is frowned upon by the majority of people. Even for jobs, being quirkless is like getting an instant rejection for the available post in a company. In this world where power means everything. There is a boy named Izuku Midoriya born on July 15th. Izuku was a ball of sunshine. He always brought a smile to everyone's face when he was a kid. His dream was to become a hero and keep the smiles of people as safe as he can. But things started falling apart when he found out that he was quirkless. Izuku didn't let that discourage him. He had a few people believe in him. Hi's mom was always his supporter. Izuku grew up to 11 years old. There was not much of a change. Izuku still had a few friends who were happy with him. Others would just ignore Izuku, but that did not affect him. The teachers were fair as long as he didn't cause any troubles. But little did he know, his life as he had known is about to turn into an emotional roller coaster. It was like any other school day. Izuku is making his way to school talking with a female friend. They made their way to the class and after saying, "See you later," to each other, Izuku sat down in his seat. The class monitor then stood up and said, "I got a notice from the teacher who said that we have a free first PRD since there is a meeting going on." Everyone gave a collective response of understanding the announcement as people split into groups and 5 students came to Izuku's desk and sat around him. Izuku then smiled and said, "Good morning guys." The group replied, "Morning Midoriya." In the teacher's office at the meeting. The principal, after seeing all the teachers arrive, started the meeting. "All right teachers, we are getting a new student tomorrow. This is special because we are finally getting a student who has a S-rank quirk. If we nurture him nicely and keep him happy during his school time here, he has the potential to enter into the UA, which we can use for publicity to get more well known. This will definitely be a chance worth taking." The teachers started discussing amongst themselves as one of the teachers asked, "Are there any benefits for us?" The principal smirked as he said, "If everything goes according to plan, we can have a big salary increase in the future." The teachers all agreed shortly after. The principal then said, "We should hold him above all others in studies. We need to be subtle about it. If the students have doubts about unfair treatment and inform their parents, we will be at risk." One of the teachers raised their hands and said, "Our current topper in academics is the quirkless student. He always gets above 95. The principal said, "Just drop a couple marks, he is none of our concern. He has no future, after all he was born quirkless." The principal continued and informed the teachers on how to counter doubts from students. The bell rang as the principal dismissed the teachers to their respective classes. In Izuku's class, the bell just rang. The students went to their respective seats as it is English PRD now. The sir came in as he announced, "All right students, we are getting a new transfer student tomorrow. Be kind to him, all right?" A collective "yes" was the response from the students. Izuku was interested. He hoped the transfer student would be a good guy. A few hours later, bell rang, indicating the start of lunchtime. Izuku went towards his group as he said, "Hey Amira, Alan, Helen, Hirik and Samire. Did you guys bring lunch?" 4 of them nodded as Amira said, "I was in a hurry this morning and forgot to pack it." She rubbed the back of her neck in embarrassment and Izuku chuckled and said, "You can have some of mine, Amira-san, Mom did make quite a bit." Amira was happy as she said in excitement, "Yay. Aunt Inko's cooking, I am happy I didn't bring lunch now." Alan and Hirik glared a bit in jealousy at Amira who got to eat Aunt Inko's delicacy. Izuku smiled at his surroundings. He was happy with his life. Good friends, training going well. Izuku released a small sigh as he muttered, "I just hope I can be a hero even without a quirk." 2 hours later. The bell rang signaling the end of the school day. Izuku stayed behind since it was his day to clean the board and arrange the chairs on the tables. Amira came back as she said, I will help you Midori. As thanks for sharing your lunch with me. Izuku gave a bright smile as he said, thanks Amira-san, I appreciate your help. After a few minutes, both were done with the cleaning as Amira said, well Midori, I need to go home soon, bye. Izuku waved his hand at her while he said, bye, Amira-san. See you tomorrow? Izuku was walking home when suddenly someone put a hand on his shoulder. Izuku turned around to see a guy his age with a bit of irritation in his face asking, do you know the way to the market? Izuku blinked and thought, must be new to the city. Izuku gave a smile as he said, I am also going there, you can follow me. The boy nodded as he started to follow Izuku's lead. Izuku after a bit of silence asked, are you new to the town? The guy answered, yeah, the name's Katsuki Bakugu. You? Izuku with a smile answered, I am Izuku Midoriya, currently studying in Aldera School. Bakugu raised his eyebrow as he commented, oh? How is the school? I will be transferring there tomorrow. Izuku dragged out the oh in shock and said, it's a good school Bakugu-san, people are friendly too. Bakugu just hummed in answer as they arrived in the general store. Izuku and Bakugu separated for their own shopping and after paying the bill. Izuku then said, I hope to see you in school tomorrow Bakugu-san, bye. Bakugu with a small smirk answered, me too, Midoriya. Bye. Izuku jogged his way home as he entered the apartment they own and ran. Izuku saw his mom in the kitchen. Inko was coughing a bit as Izuku in worry asked, are you okay mom? Do we go to a clinic? Inko just smiled reassuringly at Izuku as she said, it's fine Izu-chan, it's just a common cough. Izuku believed her and told her about meeting Bakugu. Inko smiled as she said, you have quite the luck Izuku, what are the chances of meeting a stranger who will transfer into your school the next day? Both laughed a bit as Izuku went to do his evening training. Izuku's schedule consists mainly of speed running and parkour exercises and also some basic exercises for strength building in a way that growth won't be affected. Izuku changed into a t-shirt and train shorts as he ran to the nearby park. He arrived at the park as he went towards a group of older-aged teens who were already just speedrunning around the obstacle course. Izuku greeted them as he started the warm-ups. After an hour of having fun around the obstacle course, Izuku went on a long run which usually goes over 5 miles. 1 hour later. Izuku managed to sprint through 9 miles before he stopped at the beach as he started breathing heavily. Izuku then looked to the sea as he saw the appealing scenery of the orange-colored sky due to the sun setting and the clear color of the blue sea merging in the view. The time Izuku felt at peace and appreciation for life. But little did he know, this was one of the final moments for a long time where he can look at this scenery in the same manner as he is now. Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Narrator's POV. It's 8 a.m. in the morning as the door to Midoriya's household opened up and out ran a green-haired boy as he gave a smile to nearby neighbors and kids as he was jogging his way to school. Arriving at a traffic light, Izuku stopped and was waiting for the walk light to go green but he heard a voice, Hey, Izuku. Izuku turned his head as he saw his friends Hirik and Samire jogging up to him. Izuku beamed a bright smile as he said, hello Hirik-kun and Samire-chan. Hirik and Samire each gave a high five to Izuku as the walk light glowed green and the gang of 3 were off on their way to school. Izuku while walking said, hey, I saw the transfer student yesterday when he asked me for directions to a general store. Samire gave a wide-open mouth expression as she exclaimed, wow Izuku, you are really lucky sometimes, how is he by the way? Izuku hummed as he said, he is a scary-looking person but was good to me yesterday. Hirik then commented, I wonder if he is in our class, what do you think Izuku? After a bit of thinking, Izuku said, might be, there are only 2 sections in our grade so there is a pretty good chance. The trio arrived in front of their school, they then arrived at their classroom after a few minutes. Izuku looked at the time and just as he looked, the bell rang, signaling the start of their classes. The students made their way to their seats as their homeroom teacher came in looking excited. The teacher placed his book on the table as he said, well students. We got a transfer student joining us this year. He is a promising student with very nice grades, hope you all get along with him well. The students were a bit confused at the sudden cheerfulness of their sensei, he is usually monotone about teaching, the students' thoughts were along the lines of, must be a very smart kid. Must be from a rich family. It might as well be Sensei's son. The door then opened as a boy with average height, scary-looking facial features with sharp red eyes and a small scowl on his face. The class were intrigued on how the new person will present himself. The teacher offered the boy a chalk as Bakugu went to the board and wrote his full name and turned to the class as he pocketed his hands and said, "The name's Katsuki Bakugu, I am 11, I transferred from Shibuya School, my quirks explosion." Katsuki created small sparks of explosions in his arms as he smirked. Students were looking at awe at his quirk while their teacher had a strange smile. Bakugu spots Izuku who smiles and waves at him. Bakugu, seeing an empty seat next to Izuku, goes to that seat. Izuku turns to him as he says, "I hope for a good year beside you." Bakugu gave a small smirk as he said, "Same here Midoriya, same here." A few PRDS passed by as it was finally time for the lunch break. Izuku saw Bakugu was busy answering a few questions of other students but was slowly getting annoyed. Izuku then yelled, "Hey Bakugu san, wanna join me for lunch?" Bakugu then excused himself from the students as he gave Izuku a nod as they went to have their lunches in a quiet place. As they arrived, Bakugu took a long breath as he said, "Thanks for saving me there Midoriya, I was about to lose my anger with them." Midoriya laughed a bit as he said, "They are not a bad bunch Bakugu-san, it's just that this is the first time in years that our class is getting a transfer student, so they are all excited and curious." Bakugu nodded at the reasoning as they both opened their lunch boxes. Izuku saw that Katsuki brought fried rice but the rice was redder than usual. Seeing Izuku's confusion, Bakugu smirked and said, "I prefer spicy food due to my quirk tendencies." Izuku nodded as he said, "Well, it seems like I have omelette and rice along with some boiled vegetables." Bakugu, seeing Izuku's food, asked, "Is that enough for lunch?" Izuku grinned as he said, "I eat 2 boxes." Bakugu nodded as Izuku's friends found them and joined them after introducing themselves to Bakugu. Izuku smiled as Bakugu seemed to be getting along with every one of his friends. The group had an enjoyable time. Izuku's gang weren't like the overly excited classmates, which Bakugu appreciated very much. The school went on for the rest of the day. The only strange thing to Izuku's class is that all the teachers seems to be very excited about teaching as well. The class welcomed as the classes are more fun that way. But the real reason is something none of them could have anticipated. The school day ended. Bakugu was outside the school seemingly waiting for someone. Izuku, who saw Bakugu while exciting the block with his friends, ran to him. Izuku called out to Bakugu, who turned around as Izuku said, "I could give you a tour of the nearby places, Bakugu-san." Bakugu, who was stunned for a moment, let out a small smile as he said, "I would like that Midoriya, how and when do we meet up?" Midoriya then opened his bag and took out a book out of which he tore a piece of paper and wrote a few letters on it and gave it to Bakugu as he said, "This is my Herogram account Bakugu-san, we can maintain contact in there." Bakugu took the paper as a car stopped in front of Bakugu as the mirror came on and a woman, similar to Bakugu in look, said, "Well Katsuki, I am here to pick you up." "Oh? Who is this cute kid?" Katsuki answered, "Well old hag, this is my new friend Izuku Midoriya, he is the one I told you yesterday about." Izuku's sweat dropped at his new friend casually calling his mother, "old hag." Mitsuki smiled as she said, "Ah. So you are the boy who helped my son to the general store. Thanks for that, I hope you can be a good friend to him, he has quite a short temper." The sentence got a yell of agitation from Bakugu claiming he doesn't have any anger issues unlike the old hag. This got Katsuki a good bump on his head as Mitsuki's fist were smoking. Izuku laughed at the situation, which made both Mitsuki and Katsuki smile at how bright Izuku's smile was. Both Bakugus drove away as Izuku went back to his friends as they all went on their merry way to home. Time skip, 3 days. It was Saturday, the weekdays have gone by pretty good. Bakugu liked his time with his new friends even though Hirik and Alan constantly taunt Bakugu to see his angry Pomeranian face, as they dubbed it. The girls were first a bit distant with Bakugu but are getting along with him fine. Izuku and Bakugu were instant friends. They both enjoyed each other's company as Izuku's smiles would always remove Bakugu's grumpiness. Today was the day. Izuku planned to show Bakugu the nearby areas. They both agreed on Saturday as Sundays are more busier. Izuku's POV. It seems like I am too early to the park. We did agree to meet here after all. I did prepare the list of places to go today for fun. We could always cover other places in future. I sat at the bench just looking round at the birds and butterflies on trees and flowers. After a few minutes, I heard footsteps approaching fast as I say a breathing Bakugu-san. I waited till he caught his breath and said, "You sure took your time." Bakugu had a tick on his head as he grumbled, "I got lost and accidentally walked a kilometer in the wrong direction." I laughed, "It is right near to his house and he still manages to get lost? Haha. I am still laughing while ignore Bakugu-san's glaring face. A few minutes later, I stopped as I took a few breaths to calm down and said, "All right. Since we are close to breakfast time, I will show you a nice cafe. Third person POV. Both were walking with Izuku leading as Izuku explained his plans after breakfast. The plan was to go to the arcade till lunch and have lunch in a nearby ramen store which is said to hold some of the spiciest ramen varieties. The last one got Bakugu grinning madly. Izuku made them go to a nearby cafe which was famous for its varieties of breakfast options and quick service. They both got in and managed to find a table with 2 seats even though it is crowded. A waiter came to them as she asked, "Welcome to Calce's Cafe boys, what would you like?" Izuku smiled as he said, "I will take some pancakes please, Bakugu after looking through a few options said, "I would like French toast please." The waiter noted their orders as she asked, "Anything to drink?" Izuku and Bakugu unknowingly at the same time answered, "Sprite." The waiter blinked in surprise as the 2 boys just blankly looked at each other and laughed out. The waiter smiled as went about to submit the order in the kitchen. After half an hour, the 2 excited from the cafe with their stomachs full and ready for their day, Izuku then lead Bakugu to Calus Hyper Mall, one of the biggest malls in Japan with a whole entire floor dedicated to arcade games. Both boys entered and bought 1,000-point cards each to play. Izuku first went to the 1 vs 1 racing as there was already someone waiting for a challenge. Bakugu went to the test U reaction machine. A light will move in a circular pattern around a group of prizes. If you hit the button right when the light goes on bonus, you will get hella number of tickets. Bakugu was good at this as he hit the bonus and 300 tickets were transferred to his card. On the other hand, Izuku won against his opponent, winning 50 tickets. The next 2 hours, the boys tore through the games, winning some and losing some. At the end, Izuku used his last 50 points to get a All Might figure from the claw machine which Bakugu failed to get twice. Izuku managed to hook it, the figure landed in the hole and come to the opening, ready to be picked up as Izuku took it and gave it Bakugu. Bakugu was surprised as he said, "Don't you want it? I mean, you are as big a fan as I am and you did win it?" Izuku just smiled and said, "Well, I will give it to you as a start of a nice friendship between us and I already do have the same figure anyways." Bakugu had a smile as he accepted the figure and both went to the ticket machine as flashed their cards. Izuku had 2,000 while Bakugu had 1,800 tickets. Both high-fived as they spent their tickets to get a hero-themed stationery set. Izuku saved the rest 200 tickets for another day. Both exited the arcade as they went to get lunch at the ramen place Izuku recommended. Katsuki was actually sweating at the amount of spice in the ramen as he looked disbelievingly at Izuku who was happily slurping the same order as him. Katsuki thought of Izuku to be more of a sweets preferred person but his assumption turned wrong. The shop owner was laughing at how Katsuki looked as he finished the ramen. Izuku was innocently smiling at Katsuki who said a quick bye and ran home. The best place for a long-time toilet. Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Narrator's POV. It's been a month since Bakugu joined Aldera School. He was pretty popular due behind-the-scenes control by the principal and Izuku's friends and Bakugu got along very well too. Monthly tests came around the corner through which Izuku helped Bakugu study since he did join a bit late into the year. But when the test's results came, Izuku was shocked that Bakugu got above 95 out of 100 in all subjects. Even Bakugu was flabbergasted. The teachers used this opportunity to praise Bakugu more as they said to everyone to follow Bakugu's example. Bakugu also confessed that he only got somewhere between 83 to 88 when he wrote the exam. Students also consulted the teacher about it as the teacher just replied, "We just didn't remove marks for spelling mistakes." This calmed down many but not Izuku who had his marks reduced by 2 or 3 by spelling mistakes. When asked about it, the teachers just said there were too many of them. Which is not at all true. But the teachers just sent Izuku off. This also carried on towards normal class tests or any activities which give marks. The only time Izuku was really agitated was when Izuku got second in physical tests. When he beat Bakugu in all of them. But the teachers just ignored his complaint as Izuku was left upset the whole day. Bakugu was worried that these events might affect their friendship but Izuku never blamed anything on Bakugu. Izuku just arrived home as he yelled, "Hey mom! I am back." He heard a lot of coughs as he ran into the kitchen as Inko who heard Izuku stopped coughing as she put on a smile and said, "Welcome back Izuku." Izuku put on a concerned expression as he asked, "Are you okay mom? I heard coughing." Inko just let out a light laugh as she said, "It's just a cold Izuku, don't worry about it." Izuku just accepted it as he went to his room. Inko just opened a desk as she looking into the details of the file and a tear fell out of her eyes as she hid it back. This went on for next 2 months. Inko managed to hide her constant coughs most of time from Izuku except a few when she blamed it on common cold due to cold drinks when Izuku catches her coughing. In school, the situation of Bakugu's high grades died over as students just decided to not bother with it. Izuku tried as hard as he can, but not even once he was able to get a higher grade on a subject than Izuku, and Bakugu became closer friends as Bakugu is comfortable enough with the gang to talk normally, which includes a few swears which no one minded, knowing that it was a trait from his mother. Izuku is presently in home listening to music and relaxing after an intense training session. Izuku had to admit, his training is going well. There are muscles slowly becoming visible. There was suddenly a thud sound as Izuku bolted up from the bed and ran down to see where the loud thud has originated from. Izuku goes into the kitchen to his mom on the floor with a few tissue papers soaked in blood. Izuku was shocked. He ran by her unconscious body as he shook her repeatedly as he yelled, "MOM, MOM, wake up. What happened? MOM, dot." Izuku ran about as he grabbed a glass of water. Izuku put his hand near her nose and was relieved that his mother was still breathing. Izuku sprinkled cold water on her face in hopes of getting her up, but it did nothing. Izuku, with tears dribbling down his face and a brain filled with confusion, then suddenly went to his mom's phone as he called the emergency number. "Ambulance service, yes, this is the emergency services, what's the emergency?" "Izuku, please send an ambulance here please, my MOM is unconscious and there is blood in tissues around her and blood coming out of her mouth which dried up. Ambulance services, please tell your address immediately. Izuku, first floor, room.no." The call ended as Izuku with a lot of effort lifted his mom and slowly placed her on the sofa. Izuku was still panicking as he was praying to God that his mother will be safe and sound. A few minutes later, an ambulance siren was heard as Izuku ran out the door and leapt off the first floor, onto a tree from which he got down as a few nurses came out and pulled a stretcher from the back of the ambulance van. Izuku quickly guided them to the lift and to the room. The people quickly lifted Inko's body onto the stretcher and rushed back into the ambulance as they got in along with Izuku. 8 minutes of speed driving and they arrived at a hospital as Inko was immediately rushed into the emergency ward as Izuku was not allowed in and was on his knees by the door having no energy to even stand. Izuku suddenly shot up as he pulled out Inko's phone from the pocket as he called his dad. The phone rang a few times as Hisashi answered. "Hisashi, Inko, how is?" "Izuku, Dad, MOM fell unconscious and I called the ambulance since she is not waking up, she is in the emergency ward. Come now please. I don't know what to do." Hisashi processed the sudden information as he answered. "Hisashi, Izuku? It's alright, Mom will be fine, I will drive over right now. Call me when the doctor comes, okay?" Izuku, "Yes Dad, please come fast." Hisashi cut the phone as he went to his boss and informed of the situation. The boss agreed to give Hisashi a 5-day break and Hisashi rushed downstairs and he got into his Audi and roared down the street, not bothering about speed limits. All Hisashi had in mind was Inko and Izuku. Izuku was sobbing on the floor. A doctor then came out as Izuku immediately in front of him asked, "Doctor? What happened to MOM? The doctor took off his mask and said, "Your mother is now conscious child, do you have any other adult with you?" Izuku shook his head no as he said, "No sir, but my dad informed to call him when I see you." The doctor nodded, contemplating on how to break the news to the family, especially to the young kid in front of him. Izuku called his father as Hisashi answered the phone. "Hisashi, hello? Izuku, any information from the doctor?" Izuku, "No Dad, but the doctor is here and told me to call you." Hisashi, "Okay, put the call on speaker, I will pull over and talk with the doctor too." Izuku then put the call on speaker and held the phone in an audible range where both doctor and himself can hear. "Doctor, hello, I am the doctor who diagnosed your wife Inko Midoriya." Hisashi, "Sir, I am Hisashi. How is she?" The doctor sighed. This is the touch part as he readied himself and said, "Doctor, I am sorry to inform you but your wife has 3rd stage of blood cancer." Izuku dropped the phone as his mind went blank. Izuku then slowly held the doctor's hand with his shaking hands as tears were coming out uncontrollably as he asked, "Wa di duo yo minen du cct tor, mom has cc can cer?" Not being able to look at the broken-hearted boy, the doctor turned away his gaze and nodded. Izuku fell onto his knee. Shouting was heard from the phone. "Hisashi, dokatr? What do you mean blood cancer? My wife doesn't have any habits." "Oh my god. Izuku, Izuku? Someone answer." Even the shouting voice of Hisashi was broken as he had no clue why any of this was happening. The doctor picked up the phone as he said, "Doctor, blood cancer occurs due to mutations in DNA within blood cells. This makes the blood cells behave abnormally." Hisashi, Izuku. "How is my son?" "Doctor, he is devastated by the news, he is just on the floor on his knees and not moving." Right at that time, Izuku fell on his face unconscious as doctor immediately called for the nurses and said to the phone, "Doctor, Sir, your son fainted, please come here immediately." The call was hung up as Hisashi wiped his tears and sped down the highway, not caring about anything but his family. A few hours later, Izuku got his conscience back as he opened his eyes and saw he was in a white room. Hisashi, who was beside his bed, immediately held Izuku in a hug as he cried out, "Oh son, I am glad you are okay. It must have been devastating for you. I am glad you stayed strong till mom was in correct care." Izuku then in a choked tone said, "So I it twasn't a dream." Hisashi cried more as Izuku was more saddened, tears fell constantly, but still Izuku asked, "Can't treated?" Hisashi pulled back from the hug as he said, "Yes, there is a very small chance, but yes, but she will be in secum due to losing high amounts of B blood." Izuku started openly crying as Hisashi tried comforting him, but to no avail. The doctor came in as Izuku slowly stopped crying as both father and son looked at the doctor. The doctor then said, "We will have Ms. Midoriya admitted here. I am sorry, but there is only a low chance of survival, as I said. I hope for your sakes, she will live. Mr. Midoriya, it is past visiting times. We have assigned nurses to take care of Ms. Midoriya during night times to check on the glucose intake and vitals." The doctor then left as Hisashi slowly guided Izuku to the car to go back home. Both arrived home 15 minutes later as the tenants living in the apartments asked about why Inko was carried on ambulance. Hisashi told them the reason, leaving everyone shocked and sad. Inko was a kind and cheerful woman and a very good and just apartment owner. Hisashi made a call to his boss informing of the situation and requesting a transfer to Mustafa branch of the company. The boss accepted and gave a promotion along with it too. Izuku locked himself in the room and he cried himself to sleep on his bed. Hisashi was in the hall not knowing what to do. He now has a traumatized son to take care of too. Hisashi, having to hunger, also went back to his and Inko's room as he slept with a few tears escaping out his eyes. The next few days, Izuku refused coming out of home to school but ate his meals as he cried to himself. Hisashi went to work till 4 p.m. The school called about Izuku's absence and Hisashi informed them of the events. The principal gave a half-hearted condolences and Izuku's class was informed of his situation. This made all the students worries. Immediately after school, Izuku's friends ran over to the apartment. They rang the bell as Izuku opened the door. They were shocked at his appearance. Izuku's hair was oily and he had bags under his eyes. Izuku didn't have any light in his eyes, as not even a smile on his face. Bakugu and others hugged Izuku, who just started crying again. Slowly but surely, they got the details on what happened. Everyone except Bakugu. After 2 hours, Bakugu stayed as he helped Izuku to tidy up. Hisashi came home and saw Izuku being helped by someone his age, and after introductions, Hisashi thanked Bakugu for help and called Bakugu's mother to inform her of her son's location. Mitsuki rushed over as she said hello to Hisashi and came to Izuku's room. She hugged the boy who wasn't showing anything but was just blankly staring at her. Mitsuki felt awful seeing such a bright kid who was the best friend of her son in this state. She also liked the kid as he came over a few times too. Izuku was still having the same thought, what is even happening anymore? Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Narrator's POV. The next few days, Izuku finally got out of his self-imposed house arrest and started going to school again. But everyone was worried for him. He is not at all smiling, has bags under his eyes and his eyes are not shining as bright as they were. His classmates tried talking to him about it, but all Izuku did was just make the conversation sparse to get himself away from the conversation or just reply without words. This seriously affected the class's mood as well. Izuku's gang tried many ways, including taking him out for places he liked, but to no avail, as all they got is an unnoticeable smile. Izuku visits Inko every day till the end of visiting hours when Hisashi picks him up. Hisashi, being transferred, has a lot of workload and is not free enough to visit Inko, which he does in the weekends. 3 months passed. Izuku was able to smile, but he is not his previous cheerful self. His friends were happy they were able to get him back to this degree at least. Hisashi's workload has decreased as he spent more time with his son and wife. Izuku stopped hanging out after school and goes straight home or the hospital. On the other hand, the teacher's favoritism towards Bakugu was increasing more and more. Bakugu was even allowed to practice his quirk after school in the gym. When some other students asked for the same permission, the principal simply said, "You don't have the qualification." These incidents were increasing more and more. Bakugu was getting praised for just answering the simplest of questions, while other students in the class were asked tougher questions and had negative remarks in case of not answering. Slowly and surely over the months, Bakugu's ego grew big due to the actions of the staff and himself practicing his quirk, which affects his thinking as it makes him more angry. Lunchtime. It is a known fact in school that Izuku's friends all sit in only one place. But a student who didn't find a seat decided to sit there before the gang arrived. Izuku and the gang were gonna sit there anyways, as an extra person is not really something to care about, but something unexpected happened. Just as Alan was about to introduce himself to the person sitting, Bakugu suddenly pushed the student on the floor as he said, "Hey, you extra, you should know this is our place to sit." PSSOFF, the gang were shocked. Izuku immediately pulled Katsuki back as he asked, "What is wrong with you, Bakugu? It's only one person, we can just go out to eat or just ignore and sit since there are clearly enough seats for us." Bakugu mumbled out an apology as Hirik also apologized on behalf of Bakugu as the student just stuttered out, "It's okay," and went away with an expression of fear. The gang, after taking their seats, questioned why to Bakugu as he said, "Sorry guys, I guess I am just angry today." They all took it. Time skip. And over the months of the previous incident, Bakugu's aggressive behavior increased slowly. He stopped calling people with their names and is giving everyone an insulting nickname based on their appearance except for the gang. Izuku was there to stop Bakugu before he was really hurting someone. But this affected the friendship between Izuku and Bakugu. They were growing distant, as in Bakugu's opinion, Izuku just wasn't letting him have his fun, whereas Izuku argued to the opinions as he said, "Others' pain and suffering are not your fun, Bakugu." That was the first time anyone in school has ever seen Izuku say something in such anger visible in his voice. Even Bakugu was taken aback but gritted his teeth and walked away. Many of Bakugu's victims complained to the respective teachers, but all they got was, "It will be in his report, don't worry." It continued as slowly, some of the students who are targeted mainly by Bakugu transferred out, not liking the blatant favoritism towards Bakugu. The school year finished in this manner. As usual, Bakugu was proclaimed first in everything. He had gotten numerous amount of praise which all had one thing in common: you will be a top hero. Summer vacation came. Bakugu vanished for the summer, but what happened was he was allowed special permission to train as much as he want in the school gymnasium. Bakugu's thinking got worse in this vacation. With no one telling him what's right and what's wrong. And the high amounts of using his quirk clouded his mind. Middle school came in. Inko's condition was still the same as she didn't wake up from her coma. Izuku's recovered mood went away. He still considered Bakugu can yet be saved. The twins Hirik and Samire have moved to another town. Izuku was down the drains more. He didn't know why they moved away and now has no contact with them. The rest of the group were also shocked by the sudden reveal. But Bakugu had no feeling for them, and his first comment to the reveal in class in front of the teacher was, "Less extras here then." Cool. Izuku was enraged. He immediately stood up as he said, "The extras you called were one of the first people to accept you as befriend you." The teacher immediately said, "Midoriya, detention for talking loudly in class." Midoriya was gonna argue that what Bakugu said was worse, but before he said anything the teacher said, "If you say another word, it's a suspension." Izuku gritted his teeth as he stormed out, as Bakugu just smirked as his legs were on the writing table and the teacher didn't even bother to say anything about it. The class was also uncomfortable with the teacher's attitude but couldn't say anything, not wanting to get on Bakugu's bad side. From that day, Bakugu's torment has gotten to a new level. He started to get more and more fed up as he was physically bullying people for just bumping into him. Izuku was still trying his best to control things, but with only himself, he can't do anything. The other ones of Izuku's gang gave up on Bakugu as they stayed far away from him. Many students were grateful for Izuku's help. Izuku was the only who thought that Bakugu can still change back. Some students are just transferring themselves out of the school. The parents of some students also complained, but the staff took no heed. Bakugu even formed a group of complete bullies as they picked on anyone they can except some students with strong backgrounds. The teachers didn't do anything to these issues, as in their opinion, as long as Bakugu is satisfied and increasing his strength, they win in the end. In this manner, the first year of middle school passed. Izuku is utterly devastated. His mom was not getting any getter and his best friend has turned into the one person he didn't want to. Bakugu started focusing his hatred on Izuku. Bakugu has been having thoughts which at first he was ignoring them, but now he was acting on them. Bakugu's main focus shifted onto Izuku. Bakugu has started bullying people close to Izuku. Slowly this became more noticeable. All of Izuku's friends have been transferred away by their parents. Izuku was left alone by anyone as no one wanted to become Bakugu's target. Izuku's mental condition worsened. He stopped talking to anyone. Hisashi went to the doctor, but it was revealed that Izuku was having several anxieties about his social life, is coping with them by not talking. Inko's condition has worsened a bit as the doctor have officially stated that her death is inevitable. A major chip of Izuku's mental health was hipped away. Bakugu was started to openly bully Izuku with only words and a few physical actions involving shoving and tripping. Izuku looked at all the students who he had once helped were only having a guilty expression as they stared at the scenes. The teachers took the chance of Izuku's unwillingness to talk as they made it into a criticism and decreased his overall grade from top 2 to 10th place. Slowly as the days passed by, Izuku was slowly being chipped away. He is unable to trust anyone anymore. Hisashi and his mom being the only links for him to keep going and his dream to be a hero. Izuku didn't give up his dream. Teachers even mocked at his dreams during the future plan classes they have once a month. Bakugu's behavior led him to become a villain in almost all ways except, no one has any ways to prove it. Once a student did call the police, but after having no evidence of Bakugu physically bullying people as the footages were deleted. A month later the student got a fail mark at the exams and had to repeat the first year of middle school. Izuku lost all hope he had in Bakugu and just stayed out of his way mostly. Bakugu turned all his focus onto Izuku as he was starting to make comments about Izuku's mom's conditions. Izuku snapped that day as went off at Bakugu. Izuku ended up breaking Bakugu's arm. The school wrote in his report that he was bullying Bakugu and broke his arm and even suspended him for a month. Hisashi was enraged as when he went to the school the next hour. Since the evidence was not yet deleted, all of Bakugu's words were there and present as the school decided to retrieve the suspension statement and the negative report as Hisashi claimed down. But Bakugu didn't. He grew a fear of Izuku. Bakugu was unable to defend himself at that time. Bakugu was one of the strongest in school in terms of combat power and strength without quirk. But Izuku had him dancing in his palm during that fight and Bakugu didn't even land a solid hit. Bakugu grew hatred upon Izuku. Bakugu has started to pull stunts such as writing the harshest of comments on Izuku's bench and even a few threats without his name so no one can point it to him. The teachers of course ignored everything as Bakugu's ego at an area where his common sense has vanished and his superiority complex skyrocketed. Bakugu's comments toward Izuku were hurtful to hear to the student body who couldn't yet again do anything. But there was one who did something. Izuku didn't come out better. His eyes have now lost any light. Hisashi was torn between his work. Izuku and Inko was unable to sort it out. Inko's condition was announced critical. Izuku hasn't said a word to anyone in a few months together. Hisashi has cried and begged for Izuku to speak but Izuku just couldn't bring himself to say anything except 2 or 3 words which was all Hisashi wanted. But Izuku's suffering doesn't end here. The worst was yet to come. Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Narrator's POV. The second year of middle school came to an end and it was the middle of vacation. Izuku only spends his time training his body and staying by his mother till visitor hours were over. Hisashi tried to make Izuku do anything else, but Izuku refused stating, I won't leave my mother's side till she recovers from her coma. Hisashi stopped persuading as days passed by into the vacation. Izuku is now seen sitting on a chair beside his mom's bed as he was just talking to her about everyday things and news. Suddenly, the vitals machine started beeping as Izuku panicked as he bolted out and grabbed the doctor and pulled him with him ignoring the doctor's yelling. The doctor realized it was Izuku pulling and started running with him knowing it must be an emergency. They arrived in the room and the doctor saw that her heartbeat section was blank meaning she stopped breathing as he immediately called upon his assistant doctors as they pulled out Izuku as they pulled out the shock machine to force the heart to beat. They tried for a while at the maximum allowable voltage but then the vitals gave a long beeping sound as the doctors all had a grave and remorseful expression. They lost her. Inko moved on to the afterlife without having a chance to say any final words. The doctors came out as Izuku looked in expectation at the doctors. The head doctor shook his head as he patted Izuku's shoulder and said, I am sorry Izuku. Izuku's mind went blank. He started breathing heavily as memories with his mother ran through his mind. Izuku suddenly fainted from overload as the doctor immediately put him in a room. The main doctor then called Hisashi as he was informed of the news. In work, Hisashi let out a huge cry as he ran towards the exit as everyone in work were worried for their senior. Hisashi ran for his life as he got in the car and started driving madly to the hospital. Hisashi only had one thought, why Inko, how can you leave us like this? Izuku is never the same and I am worried for his mental condition now. I don't think I can even look after myself right now. Suddenly a mother's loud yell was heard as a kid was in the middle of the road as the mother ran towards the boy. Hisashi swerved the car as it went into the opposite lane and collided head-on with a huge truck. The nearby heroes immediately ran to the scene as the truck driver reversed a bit. The mother of the kid also came worried that the man might have been in a critical state due to her kid. Uwabami who was the first to the scene ripped apart the door as it revealed a gruesome scene of Hisashi being impaled with small glass pieces everywhere. Another hero called the hospital. Hisashi's stomach has a huge cut as he was bleeding profusely. A woman gave her scarf as Uwabami tied it around the stomach area. Hisashi then suddenly said, "M.I.S.on Izuku. I.W.want.T.T.O.S.S.E.E. my S-on is dash." His heartbeat stopped as the nearby people looked in sorrow. The woman was crying a bit as it was because of her negligence that her kid ran into the middle of road and the man to avoid the kid has died. Uwabami also has small tears as she heard the last words of the man. She then took out the wallet as she checked the identification card of the man. The ambulance came as they put the man in the van and went away. Uwabami hoped that the kid will be fine. She then turned to the mother and child as she called the police and started scolding the mother. The ambulance arrived at the same hospital Izuku and Inko are in. Izuku woke a hole ago as he was silently crying in a corner with no sound and only tears falling of his face as he was waiting for his father. The main doctor saw a patient being rushed in from an ambulance as a nurse checked the pulse and declared there to be none as they were about to take the body away to be identified and the body's family to be called for, but the main doctor stopped them. He removed the cloth of the face as he fell down in shock. It was Hisashi Midoriya's body. The doctor then turned to the others and said, "There is no need for identification to be run. I know this man and wife also passed away today. Their son is only left." All in the surrounding were shocked, everyone felt pity for the poor son. The doctor didn't know how to break the news to Izuku. He then heard a phone ring. He saw it was in Hisashi's pocket as the doctor picked it up as he heard a voice, "Hey Hisashi, it's me Zeoticus, I was going to ask how your transfer is going." But the doctor said, "I am sorry sir, but Hisashi Midoriya just died in a car accident. I am a doctor in the hospital." Zeoticus was shocked, his longtime friend has died due to an accident. He immediately asked, "How is his wife and son doctor?" The doctor sighed as he said, "I am afraid his wife Inko has also passes away today and their son is in severe trauma at his mother's death. I am yet to inform him of his father's death." Zeoticus had a small tear run down his cheek. Poor Izuku, how is he ever? Zeoticus got an idea. If he remembers correct, Izuku is the same age as his daughter and his wife won't mind too since she is good friends with Inko. Zeoticus cancelled his meetings for the day as he called his wife and informed her of the situation. Venilana was shocked at the news. She cried for a while as she agreed upon taking the poor Izuku in. They both activated a teleporting circle as they teleported to their room in the Mustafa's branch office. They both got in car and drove off. The doctor who had just informed Izuku of what happened to his father saw Izuku just staring at him. Izuku couldn't believe what is happening. His father died? But why? He promised to be there for him. How can he die? What is he to do now? The doctor saw as Izuku opened his mouth and looked to the ceiling as he said the first sentence that the doctor heard from him for 2 years, "Have I suffered enough?" That sentence made no sense to the doctor. But the broken voice of the child was enough to drive him to tears. The doctor hugged Izuku who was just staring in the ceiling as if asking the god the same question in his mind again and again. Meanwhile, Zeoticus and Venilana arrived as they asked the directions and arrived at Izuku's room. They saw the doctor walk out rubbing his tears as they went in. They saw Izuku on his knees looking into the ceiling with tears running down his face. He made no sound. His eyes were red and very dim. Venilana had tears as she slowly approached Izuku as she called, "I Izuku." Hearing a familiar voice, Izuku turned his head as he saw the brown-haired women and a red-haired man with a shaped beard. Izuku said, "Aunt? Uncle?" Venilana hugged Izuku as she cried as Zeoticus also hugged them both. Izuku then asked, "What willh happen to me now?" Venilana with a soothing tone said, "We will take you in Izuku, we will." Having a feeling similar to when his mom hugs him, Izuku's emotions broke as he started crying loudly while holding on to his aunt. Zeoticus then felt a buzz in his senses as he saw Izuku letting out ground-breaking amounts of magical power. Venilana immediately summoned a barrier around them as she saw Izuku's eyes turn electric blue as he gained draconic wings and his aura rose for a moment but suddenly vanished as Izuku yet again fainted. The both adults looked in shock as the dragon wings went back into his back and his eyes went back to normal. Venilana looked at Zeoticus in shock as she asked, "Dear, does this mean Izuku from the D-Dragon race?" Zeoticus shook his head as he said, "No, we would have noticed this before. We should take him to the Citries, they can help us with this." Venilana nodded but said, "We should take care of transferring Izuku away and also to check if Hisashi and Inko had any wills, if not. We need to make sure their properties don't get taken away." Zeoticus nodded as they went to the hospital office. They came across the doctor from before as the doctor asked, "Do you know Izuku? Where are you taking him?" Zeoticus answered, "I am the one who talked in the phone doctor. I am gonna adopt Izuku after the funeral takes place." The doctor nodded as Zeoticus went to the desk and requested both the bodies to be preserved for a day and they will take them away to give funeral. Zeoticus and Venelana then took Izuku to his school as they entered in. Izuku, who was now awake, was just walking while holding tight onto Venelana's hand. He looked just like a doll with no soul the way he was right now. The three went to the office, which was running even though it was vacation time. After a few discussions, the principal, without caring enough to even ask Izuku if he was alright, signed and gave the transfer and bona fide certificates. The Gremlins then had explosions as they was the main field was used by a kid who was blowing explosions left and right. Bakugu, who was practicing his explosion, saw Izuku with a bunch of people he didn't know nor care. He approached towards Izuku with a huge smirk as he said, well, we got the quirkless freak here. What are you doing here in the middle of holidays? Zeoticus, who lived a long time, knew from his expressions this boy is a FING prick and one of those pampered ones. Izuku just stayed silent as Venelana said, watch your tone, young man, Izuku is transferring away from this school since we are adopting him. Bakugu, who heard it, laughed manically as he said, oh shit. So the freak's parents also died. Haha. Serves him right for being such a weakling. The Gremlin parents were enraged, but Izuku was livid. He gained his draconic features and aura in his anger as he suddenly appeared in front of Bakugu and took a hold of his hand as he twisted them completely. Bakugu yelled in agony and pain as the principal, who heard the commotion, came down as he saw Bakugu in the floor with his hands twisted in the worst way and Izuku standing in front of him with dragon-like wings. He was about to speak, but Zeoticus used magic and erased his memory to think that it was a villain attack. He did the same with Bakugu too. Izuku looked at Bakugu and just walked back to Venelana as he hugged her. Venelana heard sobbing as she kneeled down and hugged Izuku too. Zeoticus, who also read the memories of the two humans, was beyond angry at what they did to Izuku. The three left as Zeoticus knew. The young explosion user's arms will never work again in his life. Venelana slowly led Izuku to the car as Zeoticus drove home. It was a long day for them and Izuku. Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Third-person POV. 2 days passed. By this time, Zeoticus arranged the assets of Hisashi and Inko to be owned by Izuku. When he reaches Izuku didn't come out of his room at all unless Venelana called him. Zeoticus could see that Izuku was fully lost and attached himself to Venelana by some instinct. Venelana didn't mind though, she rather liked looking after a child all over again since Rias insists she is a grown girl now. It was time that Zeoticus should introduce Izuku to the family. He prepared the teleportation circle and the three of them disappeared. Underworld, Gremlin territory. A magic circle appeared in front of the gates as the trio appeared in it. Izuku was a bit dizzy but collected himself as he looked around with a twinkle of wonder in his eyes. Izuku sent his aunt and uncle a questioning look, but Venelana said, we will explain it later, okay? Izuku nodded. As a silverish white-haired appealing lady with silverish gray eyes came out in a maid outfit as she bowed and said, welcome Lord and Lady Gremlin. Venelana smiled as she asked, we have something to tell everyone. Is Zex-chan, Rias-chan and Milikis-chan home? Grafia stood up as she said, yes Lady Gremlin, everyone is home. Do you want me to call them? Zeoticus replied, yes please Grafia, tell everyone to assemble in the main hall. Grafia bowed as she disappeared in a magic circle. Izuku looked around the area to memorize the layout of his possibly new home. A few minutes later, they arrived in front of a huge double door as a maid opened it for them. Izuku noticed 3 people in the room. One was a man with a showy outfit standing beside the silver-haired maid, Grafia if he was correct. There was a small child hiding behind Grafia's legs who he thought might be her child, and at last was a female his age with crimson hair, bluish-green eyes filled with curiosity at him. Izuku looked at his aunt as his uncle started speaking. This is the son of a family friend of mine and Venelana's. His parents both died a few days ago and we decided to take him in. Be kind to him, okay? He is the same age as Rias. The others in the room thought over the announcement as Rias approached Izuku with a smile as she said, hello. I am Rias, nice to meet you. When is your birthday? Izuku just hid behind Venelana, not wanting to talk as Rias was confused. Venelana then said, I will explain later, okay? Izuku-chan doesn't want to talk. Rias nodded as Surzex came forward with his son and wife as introduced himself, hello Otudo, I am Surzex Lucifer, here is my son Milikis and my wife Grafia. Milikis waved at Izuku who waved back at the child as Grafia bowed a little at Izuku. Izuku bowed back as he looked at the young family. Izuku's mind played the same scene when his mom and dad introduced him to his aunt Venelana. The scene was so similar. Izuku had tears suddenly coming down as Surzex panicked thinking he scared him, but Venelana come from behind and hugged Izuku, whispering soothing words into his ears. Izuku calmed down as Zeoticus turned to Graphia and said, Graphia, can you please guide Izuku to one of the furnished empty room? I think it's best to let him rest. Graphia nodded as Izuku separated himself from Venelana and followed Graphia. While guiding Izuku to his room, Graphia was keenly observing him. A few things she noticed: he is too damn cute. Secondly, he was just having a blank poker face on. His eyes are observing every bit of the house. After arriving, Graphia opened the door and she and Izuku came inside. Izuku checked the room and was cool with it. He turned to Graphia as he said, thanks Wani-chan. Graphia was frozen in shock. The words repeating in her head, now she knows why her husband is obsessed with his sister. Graphia came back to reality and saw Izuku on the bed sleeping. Graphia let out a small smile as she said, have a nice sleep, Otudo. Graphia turned around to go back with a small pep in her steps. Everyone in the main hall were waiting for Graphia so that the discussion can begun. Graphia came in as she stood beside her husband and Milicus as Surzex with a raised eyebrow asked, you seem to be in a good mood Graphia, what happened? Graphia just said nothing as Zeoticus started explaining to the family about Izuku's situation. Milicus was sleeping since others didn't want him to hear the details as the others listened intently. Surzex at the end said, I understand, but why does he refuse to speak? Zeoticus then said, I saw the memories of his former principal and the boy and let me tell you, it was not pretty. Zeoticus then explained what he saw in the principal's and Bakugu's memories as Rias then said, humph, good. That JRK deserves it. He sounds like Riser too. Surzex didn't say it out loud but he agreed with Rias as Graphia then asked, but he did speak to me. Others turned to Graphia shocked at the sudden news as Venelana said, but how? Hisashi said he didn't at all speak to anyone he met for the first time in past 2 years. Surzex then said, by what you said, it might be possible that Izuku has a sacred gear. I will call Ajuka to see if he can help us with it. What about his education? Zeoticus said, we plan on homeschooling him this year and make him join the same high school as Rias the next year. Surzex then said, but how? He is a human. Venelana answered, he will take up our name when we adopt him. If he wants, one of us can reincarnate him as a devil. Surzex then turned to his wife as he said, Graphia, why don't you reincarnate him? You are a ultimate class devil but you haven't yet gotten a peerage member. Graphia then argued, but my duties as of the household maid dash. Venelana interferes, you have trained plenty of other maids, you don't need to continue being a maid Graychan, you are Surzek's wife too. Don't forget. After a few arguments, Graphia relented and said, fine, but only if he wants to join me. It is his choice. Everyone agreed as no one wanted to force Izuku as Rias then said, I can't wait to introduce my peerage to my Otudo. I am sure they can become friends. Zeoticus then said, I am sure too Rias but just don't overwhelm him okay. Rias nodded as she went back to her room to talk to her peerage about the news. Graphia took Milicus to see Izuku now that she has all the free time and Surzex went to call Ajuka. Zeoticus teleported to his company while Venelana decided to tag along with Graphia. Arriving at the room, they saw Izuku awake but staring at the ceiling as he slowly looked at the people in his room. Venelana went near Izuku as she sat on the bed and asked, not getting sleep? Izuku shook his head. He then saw Graphia approach with a sleepy Milicus who was woken up before coming in. Graphia also sat on the bed as Izuku made some place where Graphia laid Milicus down. Graphia then looked at Izuku and asked, do you want anything to eat Izuku? Izuku shook his head as Venelana said, you need to eat Izuku, or you will become skinny, you do want to be strong to be a hero right? Izuku remembering his childhood promise to Inko to be a hero no matter what thought for a bit. Izuku then finally nodded his head as Venelana went to get some breakfast leaving Graphia alone with Izuku. After a bit of silence, Graphia finally asked, do you want to be a hero Izuku? Izuku nodded his head at the question as he got up from the bed. He then took a book and pen from the desk and opened the book as he wrote, why is the sky red? Why does everyone here able to teleport with a strange magic circle? I thought it was impossible for everyone to have the same quirk unless it was passed down by the parents. Graphia then said, well Izuku, listen to me okay? You should have heard tales or read about different supernatural beings like fallen angels, devils, angels, werewolves, kitsunes, gods. Izuku nodded as Graphia continued, well, those are not just tales but everything exists, from gods to even goblins. There is a whole other side of the world that only a few of the humans know and are sworn to not tell anyone about it. We the supernaturals don't have quirks but can use magics and different arts special to different species. The Gremory family is one of the 72 pillars of the devil faction. My husband and your big brother Surzex is one of the 4 mouths or the rulers of the underworld. We are not the devils like mentioned in stories. We don't take human souls, that was a practice of the past. Now we make contracts with humans for a wish within out powers and gain strength from them. Graphia went further into explaining about the different factions and the Great War PRD. Izuku was listening to everything very intently, which made Graphia tell him other facts too. She was happy that someone was interested in the history of the supernaturals, as all the younger generation hated the subject, claiming it was boring. Venelana, who came in between, saw the scene as she smiled and kept the food on the table and left to not disturb both of them. 2 hours later Graphia finished explaining as Izuku was in awe at all the information. He then quickly typed out, "Wow Graphia Wani-san, you know so much. So you are a devil too then, what rank?" Graphia answered, "I am a ultimate class devil Izuku, I am also the queen in Surzex peerage." Izuku then wrote, "Don't you have your own peerage Wani-san?" Graphia then shook her head as she answered, "I never opted to have one, I volunteered to be a maid here since a long time, just now I quit and my husband said to me to find my own peerage too." Izuku hummed for a bit in thought and then turned to Graphia and said, "Seekin I be in yu peerage o Wani-san, Graphia was shocked but asked, "But why Izuku? Why do you want to become a reincarnated devil?" Izuku then wrote, "Well Wani-san, you said that devils can use magic and are physically stronger too. If I become one, I can train to be a hero that I promised my mom. But only if you agree." Graphia fell silent in thought. She then sighed and said, "All right Izuku, I will reincarnate you when you are ready, okay?" Izuku shook his head and wrote, "I am ready now Wani-san, I am sure you will take good care of me." Graphia was stunned for a minute. She then finally asked a question she had on her mind, "But why Izuku? Why do me trust me so much?" Izuku then with a bit of thought wrote, "I don't know, I just feel it. I feel like you will take good care of me too Wani-san. It's just what my heart says." Graphia felt happy. She thought, "Wow, I didn't expect this at all. I just want to hug this cute boy but ahhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhh. Graphia smiled as she said, "Thanks Izuku, well, let me reincarnate you then." Izuku nods as Graphia summons her pieces. She had all normal except her queen piece, which was mutated. Graphia tried the knight piece, the rook piece, the bishop piece and even the pawn piece, which didn't react to Izuku. Graphia knew then that Izuku was worth her mutated queen piece, which shocked her as to how much potential and power he has and will acquire upon training. Graphia then held her mutated queen piece, which lit up in recognition, and Graphia then put the piece over Izuku's chest and chanted, "In the name of Graphia Lucifer, I call to you Izuku Midoriya Gremory, to reborn as my peerage. You my queen, will flow with the tide of the underworld and live under my command and care." Izuku then glowed black as ice surrounded in as it shattered, as it revealed Izuku with 2 pairs of devil wings. Graphia was taken back in surprise as she thought, he is already high class in strength, must have been due to his awakened sacred gear and his magical power, which might have been present even when he was a human. Izuku looked himself over in the mirror, not feeling much difference but could tell that his physical stats have improved. Graphia then started to explain the duties of a queen. "Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Third-person POV. After explaining the role of a queen, Graphia took a closer look on Izuku's wings. She noticed that his wings were cold like hers. Graphia noted the fact in her mind. Graphia then let Izuku eat the lunch which was on the table. After eating, Graphia held Izuku's hand and told him, "Well then, let's tell the news to others." Izuku nodded as Graphia walked while still holding hands with Izuku. After reaching the door, Graphia released Izuku's hand and the small smile on her face turned to a stoic expression mimicked by Izuku. Graphia entered the room followed by Izuku as Surzex, Zeoticus were seen talking with each other while Venelana was having her tea. Graphia then coughed into her hand to get attention, which worked as Surzex sensed first and with a tone of surprise said, "Wait, I feel D-." Graphia said, "Izuku here agreed to join my peerage, he took my mutated queen piece. Izuku, show them your wings." Izuku nodded as he felt a twitch as 2 pairs of devil wings popped out. Venelana's teacup slipped out of her hand in shock as Surzex was seen gaping at Izuku as Zeoticus, the only clam one, said, "Well, isn't this a surprise, already high class in terms of power upon reincarnation. As I thought, my suspicion that he has a sacred gear was correct, now we need to find out what it is." Graphia nodded as the other 2 adults finally got their bearings as Venelana zoomed over and gave a hug to Izuku as she said, "Oh my Izu-chan is already this strong, your aunt will surely train you in magic AR-." Graphia interrupted Venelana as she said, "Ahem, dear mother-in-law, I am sorry but I am taking over my queen's magic arts training." Venelana was smiling sweetly at the stoic Graphia, but sparks were seen clashing as Zeoticus and Surzex wisely backed away while pulling Izuku along with them. After escaping the cat fight, Surzex said, "Well Dad, I will go and come back with Ajuka, he will be able to identify the sacred gear." Zeoticus nodded as Surzex teleported away. Zeoticus and Izuku fell into silence as Zeoticus got an idea and said, "Let's go introduce you to Rias's peerage, they are all your age or close to after all." Izuku nodded as he followed Zeoticus towards Rias's room. In the corridor, Izuku saw many pics that the Gremory family took together. Memories flood him again as he remembered the time his parents took him to Tokyo and the many pictures that they took there. Feeling tears trying to tickle out, Izuku shook his head to forget as Zeoticus and himself arrived in front of a door with Rias' name on it. Zeoticus knocked on the door as Rias, who was talking to her peerage, came over as she opened it. Rias saw Izuku as she immediately grabbed and pulled him in and closed the door, leaving a bewildered Zeoticus who just sighed and went to read some books. Izuku is seen standing in front of Rias, who was holding him by the shoulder as she said, "Well everyone, this is Izuku Gremory, my new little brother I just explained about." Yep, prior to opening the door, Rias explained Izuku's situation. Kaneko and Akeno, whose past were a bit similar, felt a great deal of sympathy along with Kiba. Akeno came forward as she bowed a bit and got up with a sweet smile as she said, "Hello Izuku-san, I am Akeno Himejima, Rias-sama's queen piece." Izuku bowed a bit in return as he turned to Kaneko, who started at him for a few seconds and said, "Kaneko Tuju. Rias-sama's rook." Izuku nodded in understanding and turned to the male with a slight dark shade of yellow hair, who gave a smile and said, "I am Yudo Kiba, Rias-sama's knight piece, it's an honor to meet you Izuku-sama." Izuku nodded in greeting as he turned to a page on his notebook and turned it around. It showed, "Nice to meet you guys too." Kaneko then said, "Rias, didn't you say he is a human, why does he smile? Like a devil?" Kaneko had a confused expression as Rias's eyes widened as her mouth opened a bit in shock. Rias then pointed at Izuku and said, Did Graphia Wani-san reincarnate you?" Izuku just nodded as Rias pouted a bit. "I wanted to reincarnate him if Graphia Ne-san failed." "Oh well," thought Rias as a knock came on the door. Akeno got up as she opened the door, revealing Surzex and a man with green hair with the same height as Surzex. Akeno bowed as she said, "Greetings, Surzex-sama, Ajuka-sama." Both super devils returned the greeting as they walked in while Izuku was staring in awe at Ajuka. "Wow, this is also one of the four Mao, rumored to be as strong as Surzex Onii-san." Ajuka then turned to Izuku and said, "Hello Izuku, I am Ajuka Beelzebub. One of the four Maos. Surzex told me about you and asked me to check your sacred gear." Izuku nodded as he quickly wrote on his book and showed it, "It's an honor to meet you Ajuka-sama, please ask my king's permission before checking me." Ajuka nodded as Graphia entered into the room at that moment. Ajuka then asked Graphia for her permission as she agreed, but also asked, "Ajuka-sama, can you also check his magic attribute? I got something in my mind that I need to check." Ajuka nodded as he kneeled in front of Izuku. Ajuka's eyes glowed blue for a few seconds and turned back to normal. Ajuka then got up as he said, "You got the rarest sacred gear in existence, even rarer than the true Longinus. It's the dragon heart. Before the heavenly dragons were born, there was said to be a dragon named Reiju. It was written as a dragon as strong as the heavenly dragons combined. It was known for its immeasurable control over lightning. To such a degree that it can even transform into lightning itself. It was one day betrayed by its family as anger fueled the dragon, but not wanted to end innocent lives of mortals. The dragon asked the god to make it into a sacred gear who is destined for only one. Millions of years passed and the sacred gear is said to be just a legend, but I see it finally chose its wielder." Everyone in the room excluding Izuku was shocked. Izuku was just thinking about the betrayed part. Graphia, who was the first to gain herself back, asked, "Ajuka-sama, what abilities does the sacred gear offer?" Ajuka said, "There was only one ability that was recorded in books. Lightning body. Izuku can surround himself in lightning, boosting his stats and speed to a higher degree. The power of the lightning body depends upon the color of the lightning. From white to dark black, where white lightning is said to be the weakest and darkest black is said to be the peak. As for others, I guess we will have to see." Graphia then asked, "Can he use the lightning as a range attack?" Ajuka shook his head no as he said, "He can channel lightning into objects but can't use the lightning from his lightning body as a projectile." Graphia nodded as Izuku asked, "Mag-Gica attribute?" Raising an eyebrow at the sudden use of voice, Ajuka answered, "Surprisingly, you somehow got Graphia's ice attribute, or it might have been your attribute." Graphia cracked a small smile as she pat Izuku's head and said, "You have gotten the same attribute as me, I will train you to be the best at it." Izuku gave a small smile to Graphia as he nodded while everyone else in the room sweat dropped and thought, these two are way too similar. Izuku then left since he still has his paperwork to do as Surzex kidnapped Izuku from Graphia to introduce him to his peerage. Surzex came in his office and snapped his fingers as his peerage appeared. Surzex then presented Izuku to them. After Surzex introduced Izuku to them, one of the members came forward as he said, "Hello Izuku-sama, I am Tsuji Okita, Surzex-sama's knight piece." One other person in a mage outfit came forward and said, "I am McGregor Mathers, I am Surzex-sama's bishop, you may come to me anytime you have questions related to magic." Izuku nodded as a large man over 2 meters tall with a big build and orange hair came forward as he said, "I am Surtr II, the clone of the original Surtr of the Norse mythology, I am Surzex-sam's mutated rook." Izuku, a bit intimidated by the large man, nodded as well as another man came forward and introduced himself, "I am Beowulf, descendant to the hero Beowulf, and I am Surzex-sama's pawn piece." Izuku nodded. Surzex said, "I have 2 others, but those are mythical beasts. Their names are Enku the Chinese Qilin and Bahamut a sacred beast." Izuku nodded as suddenly the door burst open as in came Graphia with a icy aura seeping of her as she said in a icy tone, "Dear, you have quite the nerve to kidnap my Ochuoto from me." Surzex was shaking and turned to his peerage to ask for help just to see they disappeared. Graphia, now looking like a demon, stomped over to Surzex. She first snatched Izuku and gently placed him outside the room and said, "Go to Aunt Venelana, okay? Also don't mind the sounds." Izuku nodded as he went to find his aunt while ignoring Surzek's rather girlish screams. Izuku then came to the main hall and opened the door. Venelana, who was talking with a girl in a weird outfit, Venelana turned to see Izuku and smiled as she waved him to come over. Izuku went to Venelana's side as she said, "Well Serafal and Sona, here is Izu-chan." Serafal walked around him seemingly scanning him much to the embarrassment of her younger sister, who quickly pinched her sister's ears to stop her, to which Serafal complied as Izuku took out his notebook and showed, "I am Izuku Midori Yagremori, who are you both?" Sona stopped pulling on Serafal's ear as she faced Izuku and pushed her glasses up and said, "Hello Izuku-san, I am Sona Citri, the heir to the Citri household, it's a pleasure to meet you." Izuku bowed a bit in recognition as Venelana smiled, happy that Izuku had good manners which others in the family except Graphia and herself didn't. Serafal, who finished caressing her abused ears, said, "Hello. I am magical girl Serafal Leviathan, one of the 4 Maos and Sona's sister." Izuku nodded at the info but wrote, "What is magical girl?" Before Serafal could corrupt Izuku, Sona teleported herself and her sister back to their home as Venelana laughed seeing Izuku's confused expression. Izuku yawned a bit, which Venelana noticed and said, "You must be tired meeting so many people Izuku, take a small nap. Come here." Izuku in a groggy manner walked over to Venelana and laid on the sofa with his head on her lap. She played around with Izuku's hair enjoying its soft texture as she noticed Izuku slept off already. Graphia then came into the room with a satisfied expression as she was about to call for Izuku but heard a shhhhhhh. She looked to see Izuku sleeping comfortably on Venelana's lap while Venelana was playing with his hair. Graphia then said, "Must be quite exhausted, a lot happened today." Venelana nodded and said, "You shout pet his hair Graphia, it's so smooth and relaxing." Graphia came over ready to try as she placed her hand over Izuku's head and moved it a bit as she felt awe over the smooth texture of his hair and started petting him. "Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Third-person POV. For months past, Izuku slowly learned to fit in the daily routine of the family. Izuku waked up at 6. Begins his morning training, which is increased now due to his gain in strength and Graphia being his mentor. He trains in physical category till 9 and goes for breakfast. After breakfast, Izuku has homeschooling with Venelana till 2 p.m. After having lunch, Izuku takes a break while spending time with Rias and her peerage till 5 p. After that, Graphia begins his magic training with ice element and sparring without magic. Izuku was satisfied with this schedule even though it was very tough the first week. In other free time, Izuku just follows Graphia around hearing to all her tales. Graphia was happy with it too. Usually Millikas, still being very young, is attached to his mom a lot, but he seems to get along with Izuku too. Izuku was having many nightmares or just suddenly remembering his moments with his parents at random times. Graphia took it upon herself to help comfort him along with Millikas, who always brings a smile to Izuku's face. Surzex was also happy since his wife was smiling more than usual and enjoying herself too. He also spends time with Izuku when he can as he explains to Izuku about duties of a peerage. Izuku's lesson even though are with Venelana mostly, he has a few with Zeoticus who teaches him how to present himself and customs. Izuku manages to say, hi, or, good morning, to the family members and their peerages, which was a huge improvement for him. Izuku slowly lost the feeling of loneliness with all of them around. He still has many fears and nightmares, but he has proven one thing by the Gremory family: he will not be alone in anything. Izuku, that day gave a smile so bright, the whole family celebrated on that day. His relationship with Rias's peerage is also going well, and after seeing him train so hard, Kiba, Akeno, Kaneko and Rias all started training more with Surzeka's peerage. Zeoticus and Venelana were most happy about this since Rias didn't have the drive before to train hard and just trains enough. Kiba being his only male friend right now. Izuku and Kiba hang out a lot. Kiba shows different scenic places in the Gremory territory. Izuku also spends time with Akeno while cooking sweets as she learns from him too. Kaneko follows around Izuku during when he is free for his delicious sweets. Rias is the closest to Izuku in his age group. Rias, who was initially excited about having a little brother, was a lot doting to Izuku. She spends a few nights with him as they both watch different animes on TV. She also takes him around to arcades and shopping malls to get him clothes too. She also shares her problems with Izuku, which were mainly about Surzeka's overprotective self. Izuku had met the Citri family on a few occasions too. He was cool with Sona, who always appreciates having a smart and level-headed friend to converse with. Meanwhile, Seraphal is on her streak to convert Izuku into a magical girl fan, but so far her attempts were thwarted by Grafia or Sona. Present time. Today, the Phoenix family came to visit the Gremory family after requesting an official meeting. Both families' heads and their children attended too. Surzex didn't, but Izuku was allowed to attend as well. Zeoticus welcomes them, greeting Lord and Lady Phoenix, welcome to the Gremory estate. We are utmost pleased to welcome you. Lord Phoenix smiled as he said, many thanks for accepting our request for a meeting and the welcome, Lord Gremory. Zeoticus then said, you already know of my wife, I will let my children introduce themselves. My eldest sadly can't attend due to being the Lucifer. Lord Phoenix nodded as Rias stepped up first as she lifted up the hems of her skirt a little bit and bowed as she said, it's an honor to meet the renowned Phoenix family. My name is Rias Gremory, the heir to the Gremory family, and these are my peerage members. On cue, her peerage steps up as she points to them one by one and says, here is my queen, Akeno. My rook, Kaneko Tuju, and my knight, Yudo Kiba. The three bowed as then Izuku stepped up and with a hand to below heart bowed as he says, it's an honor to introduce myself to the revered Phoenix family. My name is Izuku Midoriya Gremory, the adopted son or Lord and Lady Gremory and Queen of Miss Grafia Gremory. The Phoenix family has a look of shock as Lady Phoenix comments, so the strongest queen finally got herself a member then. Izuku nods as Lord Phoenix's sons and daughter introduces themselves. Izuku notices the lack of respect from the second son, Riser if he is right. Zeoticus invites the Phoenix family in as everyone walks to the Great Hall for the meeting. Everyone sat down with the Gremory family on one side and the Phoenix family on the other with the respective peerages standing behind them. Izuku was also sitting in his chair as he was having a bad feeling about this. Zeoticus then breaks the silence as he asks, so Lord Phoenix, why did you call for this meeting? Lord Phoenix says, as you know Lord Gremory, my second son Riser as of yesterday reached 18 years of age. We decided to arrange a fiancé for him and he has also shown interest in you eldest daughter as his wife. Izuku frowned as this meeting was to arrange a marriage between his dear sister and the Riser Phoenix. He turned to see that his sister was having a neutral face but her fists were clenched as if controlling her anger. Lord Phoenix then continues, my son as you know is a strong high-class devil with quite a few wins in peerage battles and I am also happy to offer an exclusive batch of Phoenix tears to the Gremory family every year too. Izuku knew the Phoenix family really wanted this marriage. Phoenix tears are the reason why the Phoenix family are highly respected in the Devil Society as they can heal any and every injury unless the person is dead. Zeoticus was in a pin. The Phoenix tears as a offer is a huge deal but he will not sacrifice his daughter and the name of the Gremory family just for the sake of the tears. Riser then stood up as he said, why consider it so much, it should be an honor for the Gremory heir to be arranged in marriage with Riser. Riser has rejected a lot of others for her after all. He had a smirk on his face as Lady Gremory and the eldest son of the Phoenix side but Lord Phoenix didn't say anything. Izuku then said, isn't it supposed to be in reverse Riser-san? Everyone looked at Izuku as he stood up and said, from what he said, why is Riser-san talking like he is in a higher position? Lord Phoenix gave a frown to Izuku as he said, children shouldn't interfere in adults' talk. Stay true. With all due respect Lord Phoenix. Izuku interrupted Lord Phoenix as he continued, Riser-san is not the heir to the Phoenix family. Meanwhile my dear Wani-san is the legitimate heir to the Gremory family, it is her who should be deciding for the marriage, not Riser-san. The Phoenix head was silenced as Rias was feeling very happy about how her lil brother is defending her as she thought, he even opposed the Phoenix head just for me, he looks so cool right now. Riser then banged the table as he yelled, what nonsense are you talking you half-devil scum? Suddenly a icy aura enveloped the room as Graphia appeared with an angry expression as she said, you dare insult my queen, do you wish for a death? Second son of the Phoenix head. Lord Phoenix instantly got up and he said, please forgive my son for his behavior Lady Graphia, he means no harm, he is just immature child dash. But he is 18-year-old adult Lord Phoenix and I have observed he is not at all showing respect to my mother and father, does the Phoenix family think? They are above the Gremory family. Izuku's words brought a look of realization to Riser and his family. Lord Phoenix had no words to say anything. He then said, we apologize for his behavior, we hope this matter will not affect our proposal. Zeoticus smiled as he said, the decision lies with the heir of our family and my dear daughter. Rias smiled as stood up and said, I am afraid I have to reject the proposal as I do not see the individual Riser Phoenix to be fit to be the head of Gremory in future with his immature behavior and disrespect. Lord Phoenix was gonna say something but suddenly Riser, who was now not frozen, yelled, how are you reject me, you should grovel at my feet to beg to be my wife you slut. Suddenly a huge amount of power pressured over everyone as Izuku was seen standing with his draconic features out and a huge amount of electricity around him as he said, Lord Phoenix, please see that your son minds his words or else retaliation will be served. Even more power pressured the family as Riser and his younger sister fell to floor unable to breath as Lord Phoenix said, I apologize for my son's behavior. We will take the Gremory heir's rejection and will not persuade any further. The pressure lifted off as the Phoenix family was finally able to stand freely. The Gremory family were in shock at Izuku as Graphia smiled proud of her brother and queen. The Phoenix family made Riser apologize as they left with Riser glaring at Izuku while leaving. As soon as they left, Rias tackled Izuku into a hug as she kept thanking him and crying a bit as Izuku talked the longest he did till now just for her sake. Soon the Venelana also joined in as Zeoticus said, I should have remembered the fact that Riser is not heir and that they were in no position to make offers. Sorry Rice. Rias got her face away from Izuku's chest as she smiled at her father and said, it's fine father, I am glad I don't have to marry that BSTRD. Graphia came forward as she patted Izuku's head and said, you did a very good job Izuku, I am proud you even got out of your silence to speak up for Rias, you also unlocked your sacred gear fully. It was true, Izuku's pupils while still the same color had a slit in them similar to a dragon and his dragon wings were out too. Izuku just smiled as his notebook appeared and he wrote, I just didn't want Rias' life to be ruined, she is my sister and best friend after all. Rias beamed as she tackled Izuku again as they fell to the floor as Surzex then came in. He looked at Rias and Izuku and said, did Izuku accept Rias' confession? Everyone laughed as both Izuku and Rias turned red as Rias instantly got up as she yelled at her brother while Akeno was giving a small jealous glare to Rias as she pouted to herself as she thought, you might have gotten ahead Rias but I will not give him up so easily. Izuku meanwhile was very happy for the first time since his parents' death as he thought, Mom, Dad. I hope you both are united in heaven, you don't need to worry about me as I feel like I can also be in peace and joy here. Izuku took his first step to recover himself. Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Third person POV. 3 years and 8 months later. In a huge empty room, we see a young adult forming ice glaciers of huge scale in different sizes and shapes all over the room. The adult is then suddenly emits red lightning as he disappears and reappears behind a huge glacier. The adult punches it as the lightning spread among the glacier and it breaks into a million pieces. The adult dashed around the field similarly breaking the glaciers in all places and finally reappears in the middle as he let out a breath and thinks, red lightning still takes a lot of stamina from me, better stick with purple for now. My ice magic is strong as always, I hope Wani-san is satisfied with my training results too. I am Izuku, I am always proud of you. The voice revealed to be Graphia Lucifuge Gremory, the strongest queen of the underworld, and in front of her was Izuku Midoriya Gremory, the strongest youth devil. Reaching ultimate class officially in just 3 years 4 months. Izuku was the hope of the reincarnated devils. He is the first reincarnated devil to ever receive ultimate class promotion but has decided not to get a peerage but keeps the pieces with him. Izuku smiles towards Graphia as he snaps his fingers and words began to form in air with ice. Good morning, Wani-san. Graphia gave a smile as she said, Good morning, Izuku. I see you are well prepared for tomorrow's UA entrance exam. Izuku nodded as he looked out into the blue sky. He stated his dreams to be a hero in front of the Gremory family, as the Gremory family happily supported it, since Rias and her peerage are going to attend the U.A University in the general course after all. Izuku and Rias are in the mansion that their brother brought for them in the city, as Graphia decided to stay here for a week with Millicast so Izuku can adjust to being in the human world after nearly 4 years. Rias, who was motivated by her younger brother, also went through rigorous training, as she was also promoted to Ultimate Class Devil a few weeks after Izuku was. Rias's second newest addition in her peerage was Issei Hyudu, the Red Dragon Emperor. He joined a year ago and is presently a middle-class devil, with the rest of the peerage being high-class except for Gasper, who was middle-class. Rias's newest addition was a former nun with a sacred gear, Twilight Healing, which is capable of healing injuries and minor health issues. Her name is Asia Argento, still in lower class but almost the most important piece in Rias' peerage. Rias was still having a huge crush on Izuku along with Akeno, as they both tried number of ways to try to win him over, but all of the attempts backfired due to Izuku's innocence, which left them flustered. Akeno, the lightning priestess, is as strong as Rias in terms combat strength, while Kiba, unlocking his balance breaker while training, rose up to high class, while Kaneko, who thanks to Issei managed to get rid of her fear with Senjutsu and advanced to high class. Present time. Graphia looked at Izuku as she said, I hope you remember not to reveal yourself as a devil, Izuku. Izuku, who was drinking water, snapped his fingers again as words made of ice appeared. I already registered my quirk as Lightning Dragon's Heart and Ice Creation, Wani-san. Graphia nodded, a wise thing to do. Even though dual quirk wielders are extremely rare, like 1 in 10 millions, there were a few registered ones, so Izuku's was accepted after a showcase. Graphia then closed the distance between Izuku and herself and gave him a gentle hug as she said, Don't worry, Izuku, you will do fantastic, I know it. You are as almost strong as me. I am glad to have gotten you as a little brother, you were one of the best things that happened to me. Izuku hugged her back as he said, Me too, Wani-chan, me too. Graphia smiled hearing his voice. Even though he is as stoic as her, she can still read him as easy as reading alphabets. She knew he was worried about his exam and entering back into human society. Graphia then released Izuku from the hug as she sternly said, Be careful of those harlots who can sway you away for their greed, and make sure to eat every day, and you must call me every day at least 3 or 5 times. Be sure to enjoy yourself and make friends and dash dot. Izuku chuckled as he put a hand on Graphia's mouth, stopping her, and he said, Don't worry, Wani-chan, I will definitely take care of myself. Graphia smiled as she gave him another hug and said, It's time I go back then, Izuku. I don't think your big brother can stay alone more without me. In the underworld, Surzex was seen on the sofa curled up to himself while having comic tears as he whined. Graphia came back. Back to Izuku and Graphia. Izuku laughed a bit and said, It's best if you head back now, One-chan. I do have Rias and Akeno here, so don't worry. Graphia smiled a bit sadly as she didn't want to leave this quickly at all. Izuku was always with her all this 4 years, and honestly it was her best times too. Graphia and Izuku went to the guest room as Graphia picked up the sleeping Millicast and summoned a magic circle as she waved at Izuku, who gave her a smile and waved back too. Graphia disappeared as Izuku let out a sad smile watching her leave, as suddenly he was hugged from behind. He looked behind to see Akeno hugging him as she gave him a wide smile. Izuku smiled too as Akeno said, Don't worry, Izuku-an, I won't let you be lonely at all. Rias, who was passing by, saw the scene as she yelled, Hey, what do you mean, I won't let him be lonely without Graphia too? Rias hugged Izuku from front while giving Akeno a glare, who just smiled at her while Izuku smiled awkwardly at the situation. Izuku snapped his fingers as both Rias and Akeno released him and looked up to see the ice form words, I am happy that I have you guys as best friends. Both Rias and Akeno gave him a wide smile, but they only had one though in their mind, I will make this friendship into romance at any cost. Rias then said, By the way, Izuku, me and Akeno got accepted into general studies through recommendation. Izuku gave a smile and a V sign to them as he snapped his fingers and ice words appeared, Nice, you too, I hope Kiba and the rest are doing good too. Rias answered, You don't need to worry for them, Izuku, I am pretty sure Kiba will take care of them for a year and we will visit them once a month or so too. Akeno then said, I do want to see the 3-way drama between Issei, Kaneko and Asia-chan too. Both girls are clearly trying hard to make Issei realize that they love him. Izuku nodded to that while Akeno thought, Well, the situation is same for me and Rias. At least it's easier for Asia and Kaneko since Issei honestly desires after females while Izuku-an is just so innocent and Graphia-sama will kill me if I ruin it, not like I want to since his reactions are so cute, fufu. Izuku then left to go for a walk while Akeno and Rias decided to start their morning training. Izuku went outside as immediately his face changed to his stoic one. Izuku never did recover from his past with this society, so he was always on guard whenever he is out of the house. Izuku's POV. One thing I like about this house is that it's very close to the Takota Municipal Beach. There is a bit of garbage, but I seen a blonde-haired guy with a buff figure and cartoonish eyes clean it. I then walked into the beach. As I looked at the time, it was 7 a.m. Maybe I will eat some breakfast out and get a takeout for the girls. I thought as I pulled out my phone to see food places nearby. There are a few fast food centers nearby. Maybe I should go to McDonald's. They do have good breakfast menu if what Rias said is right. Searching for it, I saw the nearest one is a mile away. I decided to jog towards there since it would be a waste to pull out my car for this. Well, that took 6 minutes. Here I am, Rias' favorite store apparently. I went in and saw the counter as I went to it. The person asked, "Hello sir, what do you want to order?" I snapped my fingers as ice words. The counter guy looked baffled for a few seconds but read it, a cheesy bacon flatbread and a Coke to eat here and 2 egg sausage pack muffins and 2 hash browns for takeout. Is that all sir? I nodded as I took out my phone ready to transfer the money as he said, "That's a total of $12.43 sir, how are you paying?" I showed my phone as he then typed the amount in the card machine, and as it showed a QR code, I scanned the code and paid the money as the guy said, "The order will be prepared and brought to you in 10 minutes sir. Please take a table." I nodded and went to the one-person bar-like stools and sat on one as I pulled out my phone checking some Hero Tube vids, and after a few minutes, I then saw a waiter bring my order as she said, "Hope you enjoy your breakfast, you takeout is also here too." She gave a smile as I nodded and went to eating. 10 minutes later. Third-person POV. Izuku exits the place with the takeout bag as he thinks, "That was a good breakfast for me. No wonder Rias likes this place." He walks towards home as he hopes the takeout doesn't get cold by the time. The next day. Izuku opens his eyes and sees Rias and Akeno in their sleepwear snuggling to his sides. This was always the case since 3 years ago. They both always sleep with him and Izuku just accepted it over the years. Izuku slowly shakes them both as the girls slowly and groggily wake up. Rias yawns as she asked, "What's the time Akeno?" Akeno rubbing her eyes a bit looks from her phone and says, "It's 7:30 a.m. Bucho." Rias then looks at Izuku and smiles as she says, "Good morning Izuku-an." Izuku nods as he gets up from the bed to get ready for the entrance exam. Akeno then says, "Well, let's let him get ready. I will go cook breakfast." Rias nods as she gets up to go to another bathroom to freshen up. A few minutes later, Izuku comes out of the bathroom while wearing a black shirt and dark blue jeans as he adjusts his hair a little and goes down. Hearing the footsteps, Akeno looks out from the kitchen and says, "Izuku-an, wait a minute, I am almost done with the breakfast." Izuku gives her a small smile and nods as Rias also comes down. Rias stretches a little before sitting beside Izuku as she asks, "When do you have to be in the exam site at?" Izuku snaps as ice words appears, "I have to be there by 10 p.m, I am going with my car." Rias nods and then says, "Can me and Akeno come with you? I am gonna go shopping near there with Akeno and we will take your car for it." Izuku nods as he snaps again and ice words appear, "Sure, but be sure to be back at the exam site by 12 p.m. okay?" Rias agrees as she went into the kitchen to inform Akeno. A few minutes later, Akeno places 3 plates with pancakes on the table. All 3 sat down and ate dinner, and after eating, the girls go to get ready while Izuku goes to pack his outfit for the physical exam and the hall ticket in a backpack. After 20 minutes, the girls come down as Izuku saw the time was 8:30 a.m, seeing no problem in getting to the exam site early, he decides to go already. Izuku snaps as ice words appear in front of Rias and Akeno, "Let's go now, I will go a little early and you girls can shop longer too." The girls voiced their agreement as Izuku picked up the car keys and went to the garage while the girls went outside in the driveway to wait. Izuku walks into the garage as he presses a key and the doors open. It was a Porsche Cayenne Coupe. It was the only car which got interest of Izuku as even Grafia liked it. Izuku gets in and starts the car and goes to the entrance of the garage. The motion sensors sense the car from the inside and a camera scans the number plate and opens the shutters as Izuku drives out in front of Rias and Akeno, who then gets in as Izuku puts on the location on map and starts driving. "Hello there," for speech. "Let's prank her," for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. "Well then." Or "well then," for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Third-person POV. Izuku applies the brakes as the car stopped right in front of the decorated gate to welcome the examinees. He got out of the driver's seat, attracting a bit of attention of other students. It not every day you see a hot 18-year-old coming out of a costly car. Rias got out as she walked around the car to stand in front of Izuku as she said, "Good luck Izuku-an, this is what you were training for since you became a queen." Izuku nodded with a smile as he snapped as ice words appeared, "I am thankful for you and our family support Rias, I don't think I would have been here right now if it wasn't for you guys." Izuku felt someone hug him from behind, his fighting instincts weren't going off so it was probably Akeno. She said, "You were also the best thing that happened to us Izuku, without you, I would not be as strong as I am now." Izuku gave her a gentle smile as Akeno's face heated up as she let go of Izuku and he walked into the building. Izuku's POV. I only saw a few students since I am 30 minutes early, the students who are here now have nervous looks on their faces while entering the exam hall. I looked at my hall ticket and went to Hall S, where my written test will start. I sat in my seat and without nothing to do, I summoned a piece of ice and a knife made with ice and started carving the ice just to pass time. 26 minutes later. I might have gotten too into carving the ice because I see all the benches are filled up with other examinees. I then saw the door open and in came Cementos. One of the top 50 if I remember correctly, he was literally a walking block of cement with a bit of facial features present. Yeah. Quirks are weird. He then passed around the papers to everyone and then stood behind the podium and said, "Alright, you all have 1 hour to complete your written test, you are allowed to leave early if you are done. You have to go to the auditorium after this exam. The directions are marked in the hallway and of course any kinds of malpractice will have a black mark in your profile and immediate removal from the test." I then looked at the paper as he said, "Begin," and first started reading the questions. I am sure about 95% of them, the rest is just winging it I guess. 40 minutes later. I finished cross-checking my answers twice. Sitting straight, I raised my hand as Cementos came to my bench and said, "What is your doubt?" I snapped as ice words appeared. He looked shocked for a few seconds but read it, "I am done with my exam sir, and also have cross-checked it. Can I submit and go?" Cementos then nodded and said, "Very well, hand the answer sheet to me and you can go." I nodded as I gave him the answer sheet and left the room to go to the auditorium. After following a few signs, I entered into the auditorium and boy was it big. You can fit 5,000 people in the seats easily and still have seats left. I then went to the front row and sat down in a seat and closed my eyes as I spread out a thin ring of magic around me. Yep, no one is done yet. This technique is called magic sense. I send a ring of magic around me, it extends up to a 50-meter radius and if it hits something, I feel a tingle in that direction. Pretty handy if I say so myself. I then pulled out my phone to pass the time. A few minutes later, I can hear the noises fill out the auditorium, I guess almost everyone is done then. The lights suddenly turned off as a white light shined on the podium as President Mike walked onto the stage. He then tapped the mic a few times as the huge T.V behind him turned on showing the UA symbol as he said, "Hello little listeners. Welcome to my show today. Can I get a HEYY?" Poor guy, silence filled the entire room as everyone was having a poker face or close to one. President Mike continued, "What a refined response. Now then, I will give you a rundown on your practical test then. Are you ready?" Another time his plan failed as silence filled the room. I think I heard a few cricket noises too. President Mike slumped a bit but recovered as he continued, "As it states in the application requirements, you guys will have a 10-minute urban city mock battle after this. You are allowed to bring anything, the test centers will be divided between A to G. So make sure you get into the right buses after this. There are 3 types of faux villains in each center and you will earn points based on the difficulty. Your goal is to use your quirks to defeat the robots to get points and of course, attacking other students and unheroic actions are strictly prohibited. Suddenly a guy with blue hair and glasses stood up with his hands raised as President Mike asked, "What is your doubt?" The guy said in a strong voice, "On the printout, it shows 4 villains. If this is a mistake, then U.A the most prominent academy should be ashamed on this foolish mistake." President Mike then deadpanned at him a bit as he said, "I was just about to explain that if you had not interrupted me." The guy sat down a bit embarrassed as President Mike continued, "As you all may know, the above 3 I said were worth 1 point, 2 points and 3 points each but this 4th robot is called the 0-pointer. aka no points. Meaning, this one is an obstacle which will be present in each center wrecking chaos in narrow spaces. I recommend you listeners avoid it. Now then. Good luck suffering." Everyone stood up to get into their respective buses. I saw my center was B. I looked around and saw a few buses with number B. I got in one and sat in the front seat. I don't want to cramp in the middle seat since my legs are tall. A few minutes later, the bus stopped in front of an entrance to what I believe is the center. Our invigilator is President Mike it seems. He also then spoke up, "Go to your changing room and gather here in 10 minutes and the exam will start." Everyone rushed to the changing rooms while I simply walked into one of the buses since the drivers got out and the mirror were tinted. I quickly changed into my outfit I made specially for myself since normal clothes turn to ash when I activate my sacred gear ability. It was a sleeveless black top and dark blue training briefs which don't restrict my movement, so it is a plus. I got to the entrance and saw there was still 3 minutes left. Slowly people started rushing as they stood next to the gate warming up. Present Mike then says, "All right, it begins." The gates opened as I immediately rushed out. I then heard a yell, "Are you all waiting for a 1 2 3 go, there is no such things for a hero." I then activated lightning body, dark blue level and sped towards far areas since I will be left alone as people will focus on the middle more. I then seeing as I came far enough saw many robots aimlessly roaming around. The near one spotted me and started coming towards me as I then made 2 small magic circles on each hands and thought, "Ice magic, ice swords." I then activated my lightning body at purple mode as I started running towards the robots. Third person POV. Izuku vanishes as he is instantly behind a 2-pointer as he cuts its head off and disappears again, dodging a few missiles as he reappears on a traffic light as he thinks, "Not bad, these robots can react to me somewhat in this speed is impressive." Izuku then manipulating his lightning energy to his legs rather than whole body thinks, "Lightning body, God speed." A streak of lightning is seen as instantly heads of 20 robots are seen cut off in a line as Izuku turns off his lightning body to run to another area. Upon reaching another area, Izuku puts forward both hands as 100 magic circles appear in air as he thinks, "Ice magic, icicle spear." Each magic circle shoots out a strong and big ice spear which is homing towards its target and immediately 30 robots get impaled as Izuku hummed a bit and decides to go to the center to see if anything will happen. 2 minutes of running later, he sees students fleeing in terror, looking towards the direction they are coming from. He sees a huge 0-pointer racing down the narrow road. Izuku wasn't gonna bother seeing no merit, but his eyes caught sight of purple hair as he immediately looks back to see a girl stuck under huge rubble which she is trying to break with her earjacks. Izuku then immediately activates lightning body, red mode as he was surrounding by dark red lightning as he disappears. A second later, the girl also vanished from her spot as Izuku reappears in front of the entrance with the girl being carried bridal style. The girl's mind didn't caught up with what happened, suddenly panicked a bit as Izuku put her down as he looked to see a minute left. Izuku then sighs as suddenly he emits cold fog as people step away from him flinching at the cold as he then puts a step forward as he thinks, "Ice magic, absolute freeze." Suddenly, everything between him and robot froze, even the robot was frozen solid as Izuku snaps his fingers and the ice breaks into huge pieces, breaking the 0-pointer along with it. Izuku sighs a bit as people around him were in absolute shock at the demonstration as the bell rings and Izuku walks towards the purple girl and snaps as ice words appear, "Are you okay, miss?" Reading the words, the purple-haired girl shakes her head a bit to get rid of the shock and says, "I am okay, thanks a lot for saving me, but how dash?" Izuku just shrugs as he walks towards the changing rooms to change into his normal outfit. Time skip, 20 minutes. Izuku looked at the watch as he walked towards the parking area. It was 12:20 p.m. He saw the car parked in a space as he approaches it. Suddenly the 2 doors open as Rias and Akeno walk out as Akeno asks, "How did the exam go, Izuku?" Izuku gave a smile which answered her questions as Rias asks, "You confident about the results?" Izuku gives her a nod as both girls pounce on him as they hugged him into the ground, completely surprising him. A few seconds later, the girls release Izuku as he gets up and stares at the girls for a bit and then says in a low tone, "I didn't get to hug back." The girls were shocked at the sentence as Izuku takes this chances to spread his arms wide as he hugs both of them. The girls were fully red-faced, matching Ria's hair too as Izuku hugged them for quite a few seconds before releasing them as he snaps and ice words appear, "Come on girls, let's go out for lunch." Rias and Akeno got out of their shock as they get in immediately. The smile on their faces didn't leave for the whole day, to which Izuku was confused as he thought, did something that good happen to them? Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Third person POV. It was 7 days after the entrance exam as Izuku, Rias, and Akeno decide to go back to the Gremory territory for a 2-day break since U.A still haven't announced their results or the starting date. Izuku was packing his clothes as he heard the doorbell ring. He was gonna go down to check it, but he heard, "I will get it," from Akeno, who was already in the hall waiting for the other two to pack their stuff. A minute later, Izuku hears running as Akeno bursts into the room with a wide smile on her face as she says, "Its your results Izukun." Izuku's eyes widen as he stares at the U.A envelope in Akeno's hand as Rias comes barging in saying, I just heard Akeno yell results. Did you receive the results in a letter? Akeno shows her the letter as Rias has a big smile as she turns back to Izuku and says, well, what are you waiting for then? Let's open it. Izuku shook his head as he snaps his finger as ice words appear, I will open it in the Gremory estate since we are going there anyways. The girls deflate a bit but nod as Izuku quickly packs up the rest of his clothes as everyone heads out of the house and Rias locks the door while Akeno activates the security spells. Izuku walks under the shade of a tree as he creates a teleportation circle as both Akeno and Rias put a hand on his shoulder as the three disappear. In the Gremory territory, Grafia was looking after Millikas doing his homework. Now at the age of 9, Millikas was also attending the school. Feeling her queen's presence appearing outside, Grafia perked up as she faced Millikas and said, Millikas dear, continue your homework, I will be right back. Millikas nodded as Grafia disappeared with a magic circle. Izuku and the girls who just arrived didn't have time to do anything as suddenly Grafia appeared as she glomped Izuku. Rias had a small pout as Akeno was laughing at the situation as Grafia loosened her hold just enough to look him in the eye as she said, so? What's the reason with the sudden visit? Rias cleared her throat with a cough as Grafia looked at her and she answered, since we didn't receive any notifications regarding the start of our university, we decided to come here for a day or two and I wanted to check on my peerage but also Izuku got the results just now and wanted to open it here. Izuku nodded as Grafia nodded as she dragged Izuku in with Rias and Akeno following as Rias was eyeing the other hand menacingly. Entering into the main hall, Venelana and Zeoticus were seen waiting in the couch as Venelana smiled and said, what's with the sudden visit kids, missed us already? Rias answered, that and also we got a lot of time since our school didn't give out any notifications on the first day so we came here for a day or two and also, I need to see how my cute little peerage members are doing. Venelana nodded as Izuku snapped his fingers making ice words appear, I also just got my results letter, I am waiting to open it here. This got the elder's attention as Zeoticus said, well, bring it out then, let's see how you did. Izuku nodded as he pulled out the mail and teared open the paper as a small C.D-like device fell out as a projection of All Might appeared. Rias exclaimed, ah. This is much different than how we got it, but wow. It's All Might. All Might then started talking, well young Gremory, I am here to announce your results. You got 96% on the written category, one of the top scores but in your practical test. You defeated the highest amount of villains and got a total of 102 villain points. Which in its own accord is one of the highest scores in the entrance exams. Top 4 scores if I am correct. But what hero school would we be if we didn't allot points for the heroic actions? That's right, these points are called rescue points. As you can see in this clip. The clip where Izuku saves the girl and finishes off the 0-pointer is shown as All Might once again appears on screen and says, you have saved that young woman in the nick of time and defeated the 0-pointer too, you got 60 points added which totals up your score to 162 points. The highest ever in U.A history. Wait, I am taking too long and I got more. Okay. Ahem. You are placed in 1A and your classes begin exactly on March 10th. Be sure to submit your hero costume or hero costume idea to the school beforehand. The disc beeps and exploded itself in a mini explosion as Rias and Venelana pounced upon a shocked Izuku as Venelana said, OMG Izuku, you did it. You even got the highest in history. Even All Might who is now on top 30 in power didn't get as much as you. You are amazing. Rias continued, see, I told you. You did fantastic. Forgetting the surroundings, Rias placed a huge peck on Izuku's cheek as she kept laughing as everyone was shocked at what happened as Grafia and Akeno were both fuming as Izuku turned red in the face. Hearing no noise, Rias looked around and saw everyone staring at her while Grafia was presenting a devil. Rias then remembered what she did as she turned completely red and passed out in Izuku's arms. Grafia stomps over and grabs Izuku, separating him from Rias as she proceeds to glomp him with all her might as Izuku hugs back. Akeno is seen fuming as Rias is now a step ahead of her as she plots in her mind as the rest of the family laughs at the situation as Surzex arrives in confused at what is happening as he just sees his wife glomping Izuku with a wide smile. Surzex looks at his mom in a questioning way as Venelana explains briefly as Surzex overridden with happiness accidentally snatched Izuku from Grafia as he proceeds to praise him younger brother. Grafia looks blankly in the now empty space between her arms as ice-cold fog spreads around the room as Grafia was emitting a vision of a demon with her aura as she proceeds to drag away Surzex to a room. It was quite for a minute before all kinds of painful screaming was heard. Izuku, Zeoticus and Akeno wince at the sounds as Rias was still fainted and Venelana was cheering on Grafia. A few more screams later, The room became silent as the door opened and out came Graphia as she dragged away Izuku to see Millikas. Meanwhile Surzex came out all bandaged up as he said, "Sometimes, I wonder if I am her husband or my little brother." Akeno, Zoeticus and Venelana laughed as Rias, who now got up, called Asia, who came in to heal Surzex. Getting the news that Rias has arrived, her peerage came to the hall as Rias was happy to see her peerage as Issei was already ogling her body, to which Kaneko smacked him to the ground as Kiba recounted what happened over the last days to Rias. With Izuku and Graphia. Both just entered the room as Millikas, who saw Izuku, instantly perked up as he jumped in for a hug, which Izuku received as Millikas said, "I missed you so much. How did the exams go? Why the sudden visit? How is Aunt Rias and Akeno?" Izuku put Millikas down as he snapped his finger as ice words appeared. "I missed you too, Millikas. I got first place in the exam and even beat All Might's record. I still got a week till U.A starts. So I came here for the day, and Rias and Akeno are doing good. They are in the Great Hall. Go say hello to them." Millikas nodded as he ran towards the Great Hall as Izuku, seeing him, ran off, smiled as he said, "They grow up fast, huh?" Graphia smiled after him as she said, "They do, it's the part of parenthood, they just grow up so big right in front of our eyes." Izuku smiled as he thought, "Wonder if I will be a parent in the future." Graphia then asked him, "Why don't you tell me the whole details of what happened in the exams?" Izuku perked up as they both sat on the bed as Izuku spoke to Graphia, filling her in on everything that happened in the exam. Izuku never found problem in talking with Graphia. In fact, he just wants to keep on talking. Time passed as they both talked about various things as no one disturbed them. Seeing as it was closing on lunchtime, Izuku said, "Why don't I cook a feast for everyone?" Graphia's smile widened at the prospect of Izuku cooking as she said, "That a good idea, I will tell everyone while you go and cook then." Izuku nodded as he got up as both left the room as their faces automatically changed to their usual poker faces. Upon reaching the kitchen and driving away the cooks, Izuku stood thinking of what he could cook as he got an idea. "Why don't I cook a few big pizzas? I am sure everyone will like the change from usual dishes." Upon deciding, Izuku teleports to a nearby market and buys an amount of pizza dough and different raw cut toppings too. Teleporting back to the kitchen, Izuku prepares 12 doughs, 11 for each and last one for Gasper and Millikas. Izuku kneads and spins the dough into extra large sizes. Devils do have quite an appetite. Seeing that the dough was ready, Izuku first spreads the tomato sauce on each and then spreads diced up cheese on each. Thinking for a bit, Izuku places the chicken and veg cut toppings on each as he is finished and places all them on sandpapers. Slowly going to the oven, Izuku opened the ginormous oven and places all the 12 pizzas inside as he puts the timer to 20 minutes. After the ring sound comes, Izuku opens up the oven and seeing that all the pizzas were perfectly cooked, Izuku rings up the bell as maids appear as Izuku tells them to pick up each and be behind him. Izuku also tells a few to bring the pasta and a few wings he made as starters as well. Upon reaching the Great Hall, Izuku pushes the door open seeing all the family members and Rias's peerage ready on the table waiting eagerly as Izuku says, "Well, since we eat exquisite dishes on quite a regular basis, I prepared pizzas." Everyone cheers as the maids places the pizzas each type in front of a person Izuku says them to put in front of. The pasta and 4 wings each were also given to each member as Izuku himself sits in place as they start feasting. "Hello there," for speech. "Let's prank her," for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. "Well then." Or "well then," for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Third person POV. It's been a week since the results came out as Izuku and the girls had some relaxing time before their college begins, a few days on family time and saying their goodbyes. Izuku, Rias and Akeno left to their new home in Mustafa City near UA. It's early morning as the group of devils have finished their morning training and our hero is seen waiting outside at the driveway while listening to some music. Lungi dance, lungi dance, lungi dance, lungi dank dash, tap tap. Izuku looks to his right to see Rias tapping on the window as he unlocks the door locks and the girls get in as Izuku drives away towards the school. "Anything you are expecting, Izuku?" Izuku hums in thought as he takes off his hand from the gear stick and snaps as small ice words form in front of Akeno, who reads, "I don't know, Akeno. U.A have never revealed their methods of teaching and the graduates are also never answering any questions related to U.A academics, so I don't even know what to expect." Rias chuckles a bit and says, "Well, it's not like their physical trainings will be hard at all, especially for you." Izuku smiles and snaps as words at the size of 40 font appear in front of Rias and Akeno each. "While that might be true, I think what I definitely will learn is more creative ways of using my ice magic and sacred gears, since human world is after all filled with uniqueness and each and every one person can be different from another by their quirks." Both girls let Out a hum of agreement as Akeno said, well, I just hope the genre course has some interesting people to befriend at least. Rias agreed to the statement as Izuku stopped at the U.A car scanner which scans a small code imprinted on the windshield by the college. Teehee light flashed green as Izuku drove towards the parking lot where quite a few cars were present, since it was common for the third-year hero course students and most of the business course students to own cars for easier and faster transportation. After parking the car at an empty spot, our three members got out as they walked towards the entrance into the campus. Stopping at the map, Rias looks through and says, looks like this is where we part. Izuku, me and Akeno need to go right, yours is at the top floor and the leftmost corner. Izuku gave a nod and a smile as he left to walk to the elevator area. Arriving in front of his class door, Izuku thought, are there any titans in here or something? Pushing the thought aside, our hero pushes open the door and walks into the classroom. Izuku's POV. Looking around, I see only a few are there here. Ah. It's you. Turning towards the voice, I see a short purple-haired female I saved during the exam. I snap as ice words appear, how is your leg now? Taken a bit back by the ice words, which is not a surprise to me, she replies, I have recovered and recovery girl has healed me. I didn't get this chance so thanks a lot for saving my life the other day. She bows in gratitude as I snap again and she looks up to see, I just did what I had to do. As important as the exam is, a family losing another family member is very painful. She nods in understanding as I see a pink fluffy hair pop into our conversation as she excitedly talks, OOH, you are the guy that froze the complete zero-pointer and destroyed it with a snap. You were so cool that day. Third-person POV. Mina knowingly or unknowingly caught the attention of all others, especially a dual-haired person who snapped his head towards our hero thinking, creating enough ice to completely freeze a robot and destroy it with a snap. I don't know the size of them, but how can he have a quirk as same as me? Todoroki decides to put Izuku in his radar of research as Kyuka asks, what is your seat number by the way? Izuku snaps as ice words appear, my name is Izuku Midoriya Gremory, my seat number seems to be 15. Jirou nods as she points towards Izuku's seat as Izuku bows a bit and goes to his seat and sits down on his bench. I am Momo Yaoyorozu, I will be your neighbor for this year, hope we get along well. Izuku looks to his left to see a fairly tall girl with black hair tied to a spiky ponytail and onyx eyes looking at him with a neutral expression and outstretched hand asking for a handshake. Izuku snaps as ice words appear, I am Izuku Midoriya Gremory, I hope to get along with you as well Yaoyorozu-san. And shakes her hand as Momo gives a small smile as they both turn to the door after hearing it open as a female with whitish hair falling down all the way to her thighs with the end braided and has one eye visible with light bluish color bringing in a cool aura with her and a stoic expression. She looks around and then walks up to the seat at Izuku's right side and sits down. Izuku, seeing that everyone is rather unwilling to approach the cold stoic girl, snaps his fingers as ice words form in front of Shinha, whose lone eye widens for a second before she reads it, hello, pleased to meet you, I am Izuku Midoriya Gremory, your neighbor for the year, hope to get along with you, slightly smiling face. Shinha looks to her left to see a male with green emerald eyes and green hair with black ends leaning on his hand while looking at her with his eyes. Shinha, is my name, I do hope to make your acquaintance as well Gremory-san. Shinha puts emphasis on the Gremory as Izuku understands that this Shinha also belongs to a supernatural. Izuku nods his head towards her as they both look to the front to see more and more people filling up the seats. Slowly, the chattering was getting louder with the more outgoing people talking with others. After counting to 20 students, Izuku kept his attention on the door to see who his homeroom teacher would be. The door opened slowly as the class quietened down to see who their teacher would be, slowly a female with long purple hair in a dominatrix-type outfit with white and back colors and high heels, with a big smile on her face. Midnight, one of the top heroes and definitely on the top of the fan favorite list, known to be a flirtatious person but is serious on field, the cheers in delight, especially a short guy as she announces, hello students. I am Midnight, you can call me Ms. Kayama or Ms. Midnight, I will be your homeroom teacher for this year. This is my first time being a homeroom teacher as well, so let's have a fun little introduction session, but a short one since we have a orientation to attend to. Everyone agrees as students stood up according to their seat numbers and said their names and their quirk names without actually explaining their quirks. My name is Shinha and my quirk is spiritual arts. Izuku snaps his hand as dark blue color ice words appear on his head at a big size, my name is Izuku, my quirk is ice creation and dragon heart. Shock was spread around the classroom of having a person with dual quirk in their class. Midnight was also quite shocked but catches herself and tells the class to continue with the introductions. After the last person, Momo introduces herself, Midnight guides the students to go to the auditorium for their orientation. Entering into the auditorium, 1A looks 20 other students seated on one row. Here? Isn't the better class 1A supposed to arrive on time? You are so late dash, bonk. A blonde's head is seen smoking as a orange-haired girl with teal eyes is seen with her fist enlarged as she bows and says, I am sorry about this guy, he has had a serious complex since a young age. Class 1A just awkwardly smiles, well. Most of them do as the mic sound is heard. A white humongous rat in a suit and a scar over his eye is seen on the stage as he says, settle down students so we can start the orientation. A few seconds and everyone was seated as Nizu starts the session. I am your principal, my name is Nizu and I will explain in detail about your first year program. Like any normal school, you guys will have basic education till lunch PRD. After lunch is your hero training for 3 hours. There are clubs present in this college, but I recommend not joining for the first 2 months, since your hero training classes will be very exhausting for the first 2 months. No one from hero course is allowed to create a club or run the student council president for the whole college since your classes take high priority. You will be given special hero classes once a semester where both classes are taken to a place for training under full-time heroes and there will be intern programs in your second semester. Education and hero training are not the only things you guys will do since we will give you special holidays for relaxation. You have to perform well on your semester exams in order to be given eligibility to participate in the special training sessions, and if your credits are low, you won't be allowed to do internships which will reflect in your all-over grades. There will be an event called U.A Sports Festival at the beginning of every year. This event is to promote the students towards the heroes for their interests to grow to take you guys under them. Of course, the punishments are also very strict for the hero students. Any kinds of bullying or any minor or major crime will be marked as a black mark for your whole career and jail time. This is all from me and I hope you students will turn into prosperous heroes in the future, and here is a small gift for getting into the hero course. Teachers distributed key cards to every student as Nizu continued. These are access card to the hero training gym in our college are students who want to train in the evenings instead of going home or club activities. All the equipment are high-tech and maintained regularly. Any personal requests for gear or hero suits are to be given to the support course. You can approach me for any ideas as we are open to them, and if I can see benefit, I will implement it. Izuku raises his hand as Nizu says, Izuku Midoriya Gremory, the top scorer of U.A entrance and a record setter, what is your doubt? Izuku stands up and snaps loudly as huge ice words form midair, leaving almost everyone speechless at the control. Isn't it better to implement a dorm system since we will be exposed to public as hero students during sports festival which will have mark a target on our and our families' backs? It should also be wise to place all our identities under top priorities not to be viewed by public. The suggestion leaves the teachers and Nizu speechless as Nizu cackles madly and says, that's a very good suggestion Midoriya, I will bring this up to the government itself regarding your identities while I will discuss with our staff regarding the dorm. Izuku nods and sits down happy his suggestion was good. Nizu finishes up the orientation quickly as the students were permitted to go home for the day. Izuku decided to check out the building while waiting for Rias and Akeno. Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Third-person POV. Waiting by the car, Izuku spotted Akeno coming towards him as he gave her a wave in greeting as he raised an eyebrow. Catching what he meant, Akeno says, Rias went to find out more details about opening a club, she will be here in a few minutes. Izuku gave a small smile and nods as he snaps his fingers as ice took the form of words, hope she doesn't open a otaku club. Akeno let out a small giggle as she replied, well, I managed to convince her not to. She said she will open a mythology club as a front for our group gathering next year, but we do need 3 members to open a club, joining. Giving a shrug, Akeno got into the front passenger seat as Izuku knew Rias will be said, after all. She never gave the front passenger seat to anyone. Also getting into the car, Izuku turns on the engine so the AC will turn on as well. Just chillin' to some music for a while, Akeno heard a tap on her window and looks to see Rias scowling at her in anger. Akeno just giggles as Izuku points to the back. Giving a final glare to Akeno, Rias gets in the back as she complains, Akeno, you know I love that seat, why did you seat there? Akeno covers her mouth, giggling as she answers, it's first come first serve Rias, and I won't give it back till home since I like it here, the view is fantastic. Glancing at Izuku who was focused on driving, Akeno gives herself a small cheer as Rias's face was swelling from pouting in anger. The trio arrive home as Izuku goes to the grocery store with Rias, while Akeno goes to prepare snacks. Though not before getting a bit ticked off by Rias's smug face when she went to the grocery store with her husband Interest. The next day. At U.A. Getting out of the car, Izuku waves bye to his housemates and goes towards his class. Upon opening the door, Izuku saw most of the people conversing with someone or the other except for Momo, who was reading a book on staff stances, and Shinha, who was staring at the board. Choosing the silent gang to be better, Izuku walks to his seat as he sits down as he snaps his fingers as ice words appeared before Shinha and Momo. Morning. Momo greeted him, "Good morning, Gremory-san," while Shinha replied, "Good morning to you as well." Mina, who saw Izuku enter the class and greet the two others, wanted to get to know them too, but all their neutral faces and "don't you dare approach me" vibes were crawling up her skin, daring her to see what would happen. Mina wisely chose to back off. About Momo. Emerging from a worldwide influential family, Momo is a very intelligent and calm person. Due to her family's influence and bloodline, they were aware of the supernatural as well. Momo grew up studying and preparing herself diligently to take over the family business and protect it in the future with her quirk and her special powers, which is something passed down the Yaoyorozu bloodline, ability to control magic. Each family member had an element they are drawn to. Momo's element was special, light and dark, but due to growing up to be strong, cold, and extremely independent and alone, her dark powers have activated, but her light attribute was still sealed. So, her parents decide to convince Momo to find a life for herself instead of persuading herself to run the business. Momo accepts as this is a chance to learn more about the human world, accepts to study to become a hero. Momo refuses to associate with just anyone. Being an heiress, she has to always be careful from not being taken advantage of, but knowing the fame of the Gremory and about the person beside her from her father, she feels like maybe this person will not be so bad. Shinha. Sacrificed by her own father to a low-class evil god in hopes that her father would get back his wife. Shinha had to fight the evil god for days before she emerged victorious. On the brink of death, was found by a top official of the Adeptus from China, training ever since in the adeptual arts. The Adeptus even had to seal her craze for battle and death with chains. Hoping that learning about being a human would help Shinha, they sent her to Japan's U.A, where she can use her trained powers to protect her kind and hopefully someday remove the binds to her heart and lead a peaceful life accepted by the humans. Growing up with the Adepti and training all her life, Shinha never had the chance to know much about emotions. Choosing to isolate herself, thinking that fitting in is impossible, Shinha gives out a cold aura to stray away from communication. But even so, curiosity piqued by the person whom even the Adeptus have praised, she is rather curious in Izuku. Izuku. Not wanting to trust anything soon is something his heart developed by itself. Fear of being abandoned again. He forms bonds is something Izuku is still scared off. Growing with the Gremory family and his king showed to him he always has a few people ready to face the world for him, but during the years of being a devil and watching people betray and sacrifice each other like nothing is something Izuku will never forget. Now known to be youngest and the first reincarnated human to pass the promotion to ultimate class, Izuku has to be even more beware of others. After all, a person who is strong enough to defeat an army can be killed mentally through betrayals or schemes. Izuku knows he is here to fulfill his childhood wish and promise with his mom and dad. He will not let people ruin it for him again. But Izuku knows the backgrounds of the two beside him, and neither are from backgrounds with questionable reputations. Adeptus, even though known for being prideful, care for the humans as much as their own, and Yaoyorozu family's reputation amongst the human world speaks for itself. 3 people, 2 scarred from the past, 1 chained to the title of princess. We will see how this goes. After all, it is indeed an interesting class. Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Third-person POV. Soon the door opened, revealing Midnight in her hero costume, as a few rather hormonal openly gawked at her, still amazed having Midnight as their homeroom teacher. Walking in, Midnight put the ledger on the table as she looked around, seeing all the seats filled. Giving a smile, she said, "All right guys. Today is your second day of class. We will start with a quirk assessment test today. It will be the same as your physical assessment tests, but you are allowed to use your quirks to get higher scores." A loud cheer went around the class, excited to be able to freely use their quirks again, as Midnight said, "Now, go to your changing rooms. There are lockers with your names and your training uniform. Change into them and meet me at the track field." Midnight left the class as everyone else slowly followed except for Izuku. Izuku's POV. "It's better I change last. I wouldn't want them to see the scars I acquired through all the fights I did as a devil." Seeing the class empty, I walked to the changing room just in time to see the guys already changed and going to the field. I went in changing into the clothes and Acme out right on time as the girls came out. It was a awkward staring contest between us as I gave a small bow and went on my way. Hearing the sound of footsteps, I glanced behind to see U.A behind me. I continued walking as we arrived at the field. I got a glare from someone, not bothering why. I stood to a corner waiting for the teacher's instructions. Though for some reason, Yaoyorozu seems to be following my moments as she stood next to me as well. Giving her a questioning look, she just made a shrug as she turned to Midnight. Midnight, seeing that everyone gathered, started giving instructions. You guys will have do the tests like ball throw, standing long jump, 50-meter dash, long distance run, grip strength, repeated sidesteps, seated toe touch and sit-ups. As I mentioned, you are allowed to use your quirks. Everyone started thinking on ways to use their quirks, but Midnight also added, and by the way, the one who gets last place will get extra homework for the next 1 month. The feeling of dread spread amongst the majority of the class as many with not so physicals started panicking around. Third-person POV. Midnight then clapped her hand, gather attention as she said, "Now, let's start with 50-meter dash. I will call 2 people together. First are. Come here, Mina and Shinha." Both went to the starting line, getting into their respective running stances as the light went green as the ground under Shinha cracked as she used her hyper-physical quantities as she crossed the line right at 2.58 seconds, following by a Mina skating on acid who crossed at 5.21 seconds. Many gave a cheer at Shinha's performance while Midnight sweat dropped at the cracked ground as she thought, this girl doesn't even have a physical-related ability and she is still so strong, must be the Adeptus Arts influence. A few matchups went up as people like Ida and Todoroki got good scores under 5 seconds, with many non-physical quirk user getting a score between 6 to 8 seconds. Midnight then called the last matchup. Alright, now we got Izuku and Momo. Both looked at each other as they walked to the starting line. Izuku, who was just gonna use blue lightning mode, changed his mind sensing the magic build-up within Momo. Activating purple lightning dancing around his body, Izuku willed the lightning to his legs and Momo had a black visible aura around her, and right as the light turned green, both thought, Godspeed, shadow steps. Both disappeared in a sonic boom as the timer rang as it showed Izuku's time as 0.23 seconds and Momo's time as 1.04 seconds. Momo narrowed her eyes a bit but sighed as she stretched a hand towards Izuku, who gave her handshake in good sportsmanship as they ignored the gobsmacked expressions of their classmates who had a lot of questions and thought, what was that? Even my brother can only get 0.75 seconds. Those two are so cool. How did they do it? My eyes couldn't even follow them. Looks like I even got more competition now. Izuku and Momo both went to stand under a tree while Midnight, who was shaken looking at these young monsters, sighed as she continued, alright, with the first exercise ending, let's move on to long distance run. This is to test your guys' stamina and endurance. Alright, now, line up 5 behind each other and start running. Deciding that the ones with lowest score in 50-meter dash would go first to set the speed, Momo made herself a bicycle. Izuku thought of making one too but didn't want to as everyone started running, or in Momo's case, cycling. 20 minutes in, Mineta, Kaminari, Hagekure, Aoyama and Koji dropped out breathing while other continued. 10 more minutes later and Uraraka, Tokoyami, Shiro, Jirou and Mina dropped out. Another 5 minutes and Tsuyu and Shoji dropped out, leaving Kirishima, Sato, Todoroki, Izuku, Momo, Shinha, Ida and Ojiro. 10 more minutes, making a total of 45 minutes since everyone started as Ida, Todoroki, Sato and Ojiro dropped out, leaving the students with most endurance. A breathing Kirishima, Shinha, Izuku and a comfortable Momo. 5 more minutes and Kirishima dropped out at 50 minutes. Midnight made the other stop at 1 hour as she saw they were still ready to go for a while and she didn't have all day. With everyone else rested after the long-distance run, Midnight announced, alright. Now let's begin the next exercise, which is grip strength. Midnight had a few machines just in case after seeing Shinha's physical strength. Many got around 50 to 80, with people like Shoji getting 560 kilograms, Kirishima at 250 and Sato at Shinha broke the machine, making everyone shocked as Midnight scored her the max tolerance of the machine, which was 6,000 kgs. Momo's also broke the machine, making a mini hydraulic press. Izuku also broke the machine with the devil strength and purple lightning mode. Midnight let out silent tears on how to explain to Power Loader about these broken equipment. Midnight again announced ANYWAYS. Let's begin seated toe touch. Time skip till ball throw. Skipped, toe touch, side steps and sit-ups. Izuku getting the highest in side steps and sit-ups, Mina in toe touch. Midnight announced, alright. Now the last activity will be ball throw. You have to throw the ball as far as possible. Using your creative quirks. Many used their quirks in different ways except for Toru, Mineta, Kaminari, and Shinha, who just used her physical strength. Uraraka broke the record getting infinity, loosing the ball in space, which will just float permanently in space unless Uraraka claps her hand, and ball might go to a different universe, destroying a planet at the speed it will hit. A true terror of a quirk. Momo created a cannon blasting the ball to 1489 meters, Shinha throwing the ball to 1009 meters. Todoroki tossed the ball up and hit the ball with an ice pillar, launching it to 800 meters. Izuku stepped up on the circle as he let out a small breath, as slowly the surroundings was getting cold and everyone was shivering except for Shinha and Todoroki, who was heating his body with his fireside. Izuku first tossed the ball 100 meters up before a skyscraper-sized ice pillar hit the ball, launching it to space. Kaminari then immediately yelled, "It's way too cold, damn it." Izuku snapped as the ice disappeared as magic particles into his body. Izuku saw others still shaking. He shrugged and went back to his place beside Momo, who made a small fireplace to heat herself. Midnight after a while stopped shaking as she said, "All right, the scores have been tallied, here is the list." The list showed Izuku in first place, followed by Momo and Shinha in second and third place. And the last place was Mineta. A loud crying voice was heard as everyone saw the short boy crying on the floor dramatically. Midnight then said, "All right. The punishment was just a joke, you guys can go back for lunch now. I will take over your hero class for the day." Everyone agreed as many made their way back to the changing rooms in an exhausted manner. Izuku was quick to the changing rooms to change first, as he was already in the Udata uniform by the time the boys arrived in the changing rooms. Ignoring a few attempts of conversation, Izuku made his way to the cafeteria as he looked at the free menu except a few items which need money, but even they were not that costly. Ordering a large bowl of katsudon and a large bowl of ramen, Izuku took the ticket and went to the receiving counter. A few minutes and his order was prepared as Izuku took his tray with the two huge servings, and sat at an empty two-person seat table. Izuku was reading a novel as he ate slowly. A few minutes later, he heard a small clang as someone placed a plate on his table. He looked to see an annoyed Momo. Izuku snapped as ice words appeared, "Anything wrong, Yaoyorozu-san?" Momo gave a sigh as she said, "I was sitting alone, but then a group of business class people just started trying to make connections with me." Izuku gave a nod as he looked to see some students wanting to approach them. Momo then sighed as an older-looking student placed his hand on the table as he spoke, "Well, Yaoyorozu-san, why are you sitting with a person with no background, when I am here? You do know my father owns 20% of the stocks in Gremory Industries." Momo then looked at Izuku as he took out his phone and sent a couple messages as he closed the phone and continued eating. The senior, who was still bragging about the shares and his family wealth, looked at Izuku as he said, "Hey, hero wannabe, get up from here. This is a rich people conversation." Momo started chuckling a bit as she looked at the senior as she said, "Do you even know who you are talking to?" Pleased that his crush seemed to respond to him, boosting his ego, he asked, "Who?" "He is just some unknown guy." Momo let out a small laugh as she said, "You are looking at Izuku Gremory, one of the heirs to the Gremory Industries and someone richer than you can imagine." The guy looked shocked, then approached Izuku with a nervous tone as he said, "Hey. I was just joking this time, hope I didn't off-dash." Izuku suddenly snapped his finger as ice words appeared, "Your dad's stocks were bought by me just now." The guy, shocked, went away, hurriedly contacting his father as Momo looked at Izuku as she asked, "Did you really buy it?" Izuku gave a small smile as he whispered, "Sometimes, hypnotizing others to sell things at half price is something devils love to do." Momo understood what he meant as she let out a small smile as they continued eating in peace. Izuku might have spent all the money he inherited from his parents, but he still has their apartment complex where he gets money from and his new purchase in his adopted parents' company. Both of them didn't feel bad for the guy. Momo is after all a business-oriented woman. She might be willing to be a hero, but that doesn't mean she will be all heroic and selfless. Izuku is after all a devil under Graphia, who takes shit from no one. The perfect ice queen and ice king, who soon might take over the whole class and school. Just kidding. Or am I? Hello there, for speech. Let's prank her, for thoughts. Bold letters, to describe dialogues with heavy emotion behind them. Well then. Or well then, for author's notes or some explanation in between chapters. Third-person POV. Izuku and Momo calmly finished their lunch as they headed back to their class. Seeing that there was still 17 minutes till lunch ends, Momo took her phone checking things while Izuku was again sculpting a small block of ice like he did during the entrance exam. A few minutes later, Shinha enters into the class as she sits in her place staring at Izuku's sculpting. It was a quiet environment, one that none of the three present minded. A few minutes later, Izuku finishes his art as he places it on the table. It was a sculpture of Graphia in a training outfit with a serious look on her face while crossing her arms. Izuku got a small smile on his face looking at his work. Momo, who got off her phone, looked at the sculpture with a small bit of awe as she commented, "Wow, Gremory-san, that is a very well-made statue with ice. May I inquire who that is? Still having a small smile on his face, he turns to Momo, who was expecting ice words to appear, but, "It's my sister," said Izuku with his eyes closed and a small smile. Momo was taken back as she saw the smile and peaceful expression on his face. Her eyes lit up as well as her lips formed a gentle smile as she asked, "Is it Grafia-san?" Izuku gave her a nod with his smile of the face, but his face was still peaceful. Momo faced forward with a small smile still present as she thought, "Maybe I should call my mom, it's been a few days." Shinha, ignoring most of what happened, just kept her focus on the ice as she thought, "It's not even showing any sign of melting even with the temperature being hotter than normal. Looks like Gremori-san has attained mastery over the ice element." A bell sound was heard as Izuku places his sculpture in his magic storage. The class started filling up quickly as the peaceful atmosphere was once again replaced by indifference. Footsteps was heard as Midnight opens the door walking into the class. The class was absolutely silent as everyone was waiting in anticipation of what will happen in their first hero class. Midnight finally said, "Well, my dear students, for your first hero class, we won't be doing anything physical dash." Groans of disappointment were heard around the class as Midnight got a tick on her forehead as she coughed, gathering everyone's attention as she continued, "As I was speaking, I know everyone here is exhausted with the quirk assessment, so I will have everyone wear their hero costumes and present it to me. I will judge it and tell if any upgrades are needed." Midnight presses a button as the wall behind her changes as 20 compartments are seen with the students' names. Midnight then says, "Here are the costumes that were made tailored to your requests except a few which have been directly received from the support companies." Everyone is excited as they go grab their suitcases to go into the changing rooms. Izuku goes in slower again. Everyone changes into their outfits, not really looking at others as everyone were focused on wearing their outfits themselves. Arriving back at class, the tables were stacked in a corner, leaving the classroom empty. Izuku saw a bit of sweat on Midnight's face as everyone went around checking each other's outfit. Izuku went into a corner as he stood leaning on the wall. Momo approached towards Izuku as she said, "Your outfit really looks quite good and devilish, Gremori-san." Opening his eyes, Izuku looks at Momo's outfit. Izuku snaps his fingers as ice words appear, "Your outfit looks lovely as well, Yaoyorozu-san. I can see how you made it in accordance to your quirk and powers." Momo gives a nod of satisfaction, knowing Izuku understanding the purpose behind her outfit. Another presence alert both of them as they look to see Shinha, who just approached them and was standing silently. Both look upon her outfit. Momo compliments first, "Your outfit suits you very well, Shinha. Having a weapon of choice is good too." Izuku nods as he snaps as ice words appear, "I agree with Yaoyorozu-san. You seem to have your outfit made by the Adeptus." Shinha nods at Izuku as she says, "I thank you both for your kind words. This outfit and spear were a gift by my MSTR. Both of you look very good as well." Suddenly, Midnight approaches the three as she says, "All right. Only you three are left. Now let's see. Your outfit looks very nice and altered to your appearance, Shinha. I see you have a weapon as well, that is good. Now for Momo-chan here, your outfit is very well made and a bit daring, but that is for your quirk. I guess you don't need any support gadgets, huh? Now for Izuku-kun here. Whoa, you look really good with your outfit. I see it's resilient as well. You also give off a bit of devilish vibes, huh? You will definitely be popular with the ladies." The three of them give satisfactory nods to their teacher. Midnight moves back to the podium as she says, "All right everyone. I hope you remember my advices with your outfits. You can go to the support department for any additions if you want, and that will be all for today. You can change and keep the outfits in your lockers and go back home." Izuku instantly speed walks towards the changing room as the rest were still slowly walking, checking out their friends' outfits. Izuku exits the changing room as the guys walk in. Midnight's POV. Sigh. Well, now to move these tables back into their places. Maybe I shouldn't have stacked them in a corner. I walk over to a table in the corner as I picks the one with number 1 and carry it to one corner and place it down. Suddenly I hear two thuds. I look to see the table number 2 and 3 stacked behind the one I placed down. I look up as I see Izuku, Midoriya and Momo-chan. They both turn as they head towards the stack. I hurriedly ask, "I told you guys you can go home, right? Why are you both here?" They both look at each other as Momo-chan speaks, "Well, sensei, I know the tables couldn't have stacked themselves. We both just wanted to help you settle this fast. You did seem a bit exhausted earlier." I look at Izuku as he nods. I have such thoughtful students." I said, "Well, this is my first team being the homeroom teacher for a class. I guess I did overwork myself the past 2 days thinking for you guys." I see Momo-chan giving me a small smile as I suddenly heard, "You need to take rest as well, sensei. You also have your hero duties too, I believe. It won't do you good to stress yourselves." I looked to see it was Izuku-kun who just spoke. His voice was so smooth and gentle. "Oh, you both are so sweet to your teacher, come give me a hug." I jump towards them as they both sidestep, leaving me to hug the floor. That was mean, ignoring your sensei's hug. I see Izuku sigh a bit as Momo-chan chuckles as they both grab an arm, each helping me up as Momo says, "Let's get back to work, sensei, the tables won't move by themselves." Third-person POV. The three quickly wrap up the work as Izuku snaps, forming ice words. "You can rely on me for any help, sensei. I will be glad to help you with small things." "Me too, Midnight sensei, you can count on us for any help." Momo finishes as Midnight gives them both a wide smile as she says, "Thanks, you too. I will make you guys the president and vice president then." Izuku and Momo looks at each other as Izuku snaps his finger. "You can be the president, Yaoyorozu-san. I am not willing to use my voice after all." Thinking for a bit, Momo accepts as they both say their byes to their teacher for the day to go. Izuku goes towards place where Rias is supposedly making her club. He finds a small building behind the campus in the woods. He knocks on the door and waits. The door opens as Akeno welcomes Izuku in with a bright smile. Giving a smile in return, Izuku follows Akeno into the red-furnished room. Seeing Izuku, Rias gets up from her seat as she says, "Hey Izu. What do you think, huh? I was able to get this after negotiating a bit with Nizu and funding a small amount to this university." Izuku's sweat drops as he realizes Rias just basically bribed the school into providing this. Izuku snaps his fingers as ice words appear. "Well Rias, I have to admit. This looks very good. Where do I sign for the club? And what is the club name, BTW? Rias puffs her chest a bit as she answers, "Well, the club is the Occult Research Club. We just research into the mysterious happenings around the city and make reports." Which is basically to make false reports on the supernatural happening to help lessen the worry of the public. Nizu gave me permission to use this place as my base of operations. Izuku claps a bit, proud of Rias as Rias hands over the registration form as Izuku fills the details and signs at the end. Rias grins, picks her bag and says, "Now, let's give the form to the student council and we can go home." Akeno and Izuku nod as they follow Rias as Izuku was explaining about his day in the form of ice words. Akeno, reading the ice words, thought, "Izuku seems to look positively at this Momo girl. I hope it doesn't lead to more competition. I didn't even get a kiss till now." While Rias was thinking the same, but her thoughts were more alive with her making a pouting face, confusing our poor Izuku with her mood change. Arriving at the student council, Rias submits the paper to the student council president, who was a third year in general course. Seeing that Izuku was in hero course, the president asks, "Are you sure about the club, Midoriya-san? You will be quite busy with your classes." Izuku shook his head and snaps as ice words appears, "Don't worry, President, if I feel a burden on me, I will quit the club." The president accepts as our group of three walk out of the campus into the parking lot. Izuku unlocks the doors as Rias and Akeno get in the car. Rias looks at both as she says, "Well, let's go somewhere and celebrate for the opening of our club." Akeno cheers as Izuku nods, checking his phone for good restaurants. Searching for a while, Izuku sees a good Asian restaurant with excellent reviews as he set the destination and starts driving.
Okay, sadly the chapter is over, and if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.